Live.
Okay. I will call this meeting to order. Agenda is in front of us. Any changes to the agenda? Councillor Ferguson.
Did you have an addition, Councillor Brandel, in regards to Travel Alberta?
I did, thank you.
So we'll call that F. Travel Alberta? Letter or something, isn't it? Okay. Verbal. Anything else? Motion to accept the agenda as amended. Thank you, Councillor Busk. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Man, this is so cool not having plastic partitions up. Okay. CAO update. Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Worship, and members of the council. My CAO update as of July 13th is as follows. The town issued one business license last week. Glory Land project is scheduled to be substantially completed by the end of next week. Fire department received total 17 calls last week, including 2 outdoor fire, 2 structural fire, and 2 water rescue calls. The department is also active in search and rescue operations these days. Peace officers dealt with 20 service calls in the first week of July, including 160 kilometers of trail and park patrols on a new e-bike. Town office roof project continues to progress, and the transportation survey will take place tomorrow, July 14th, at the Alberta Government Weigh Scale and Inspection Station. There are a total of 15 people scheduled to conduct the survey over a 12-hour period. This includes town staff, highway sheriffs, local citizens, and business partners. We have engaged over 460 town and MD businesses to updating their information in the business directory on the Slave Lake Region website. Slave Lake Region website users have increased from 480 users in April to 3,050 users in June. And with that, that concludes my report, Your Worship, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Discussion, Councillor Busk.
So just a quick one. I know that during budget, we talked about high-speed internet line, and with 5G and stuff coming, we were looking at options. Have we settled on something yet of what's going to happen out there? We're right in the middle of, could be a bad season if we're anything like BC turns out to be. And I'd like to have that set up out there just for our EOC anyways.
So Your Worship, to the councillor, we are engaging a municipality who has done similar work. And they took the ownership to do the fiber optics business, and the town of Olds has done the same thing. So we are looking at some other alternative options to get it done fundamentally. It is led by the Economic Development Officer in conjunction with the Tourism Society. So yes, we are in the process.
Okay, Councillor King.
Just noticing in the CAO update, and it just triggered for me about meters. So a while back, we had problems with meters, like lots and lots of failures. Is that still a thing? Have the replacement ones been good?
Through your worship to the councillor, you're talking about the water meters?
Yes.
I haven't been reported of any faulty meters at this point, so that's what I would report to you.
Okay, I was just curious because it says working on 7 meter investigations. Is that water meter? Do we know, or?
That is water meters, yes.
So we are having more failures again? Is that what's happening? Do you know?
More failures, we just regular ones that need maintenance, so even replacing them all, you're still gonna have X number every year that need to be replaced.
But the replacement ones seem to be okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. And I had one more, and perfect, Roland's here. Approximate percentage or dollar value of taxes that are in arrears still, if you know.
That's in my budget update.
Perfect. Oh, I thought that. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Roland.
Counselor Busk.
And being Roland's here, I've got another one for you. So I've had a number of people approach me about their water bills have jumped dramatically, like 80%. And I'm sure you've been getting a few phone calls here at the town office about that. Not everybody waters their grass. Not everybody's got a family of 5, yet their water bills jump dramatically. Can you explain what has happened?
On a case by case basis on the water bills in question. If you're using more water, you're gonna be paying a little bit more, right? So.
There wasn't just an actual read or something like that that went out and we went through the entire community or something like that. That's why people are seeing increases or. Okay.
No, there's been nothing there. I know, we just did a big, bill by bill check last time. Identified 2 before they even went out to like, errors in the thing and corrected that prior to those going out. So, let's see if there's unusual water usage, but as far as I'm aware, no.
So recommendation is for those people to contact the town directly. Okay. Other questions, Councilor McGregor?
Do we know where we are at with Nacho Park, and repairing that? Or I guess it's Barton Park, but Nacho Park to everyone that lives there, where we are with that repairs?
So your worship to the councillor, we have received the cost estimate. We have worked with the insurance company. Most of the paperwork is being done, and we'll be able to reconstruct it over the summer.
Okay, Councilor Ferguson.
So I just noticed downtown on Main Street, there's quite a bit of weed growth growing up in the paving stones and at the base of some of the trees there. So I'm just wondering, do we have a plan or a procedure or maintenance schedule in place to deal with that? Or is it going to be looked at in the near future?
Through your worship, I will refer that to our manager, Sean.
Thank you, Mayor, Councillor.
Sean, you know what? I apologize because I should have did this with Roland, but can you use a microphone? Because anybody listening has no idea what you're saying.
Sure.
Thanks. Just as long as it's into a microphone.
So in relation to your question, the paving stones, we have had a lot of growth with the dry season. So we are working in conjunction with the revitalization on what's going to be happening there. So we have had the crews going around taking care, starting to look at that. Even our front is really popped up in the last couple of days. So it's just something we're working to get caught back up on.
Okay. Sounds good.
Perfect. Other questions, Councilor Busk?
Sean, that's not just the paving stones. We're doing that along all our sidewalks and stuff like that as well. I know out in front of Hilda Eben, there's great big cracks in the sidewalks with weeds growing right through them and stuff like that. So we're doing that all throughout, or is that just the downtown focus right now?
Yes, Mayor and Council. Yes, we are working on that weed control. That's what our parks crew has been working on. We've worked mostly on the inner part, and now we're working out towards those sidewalks in those other areas.
Okay. Other questions for Council? Councilor Ferguson?
So this ties in a little bit with the management task list, but I'm just curious, when are we going to see some of the information back on the engineering RFQs?
That's a great question. Through your worship to the councillor, we are actually wrapping up at this point. We have received all the packages. We have been going through those packages by the engineering operations department as well as our engineering staff. So I would expect that within again over the summer we'll be able to we'll have to bring that back to the council.
Okay.
With our recommendation.
And then along the same lines, so where are we at with the council orientation process? So I just want to make sure that we have a good orientation process set up so that we set the next council up for success. So.
Right. So again, through worship to the councillor, internally, we have been working on the contents development. There has been a few internal meetings already, and there has been some external contacts made to bring some instructors in, et cetera, et cetera. So it's making progress. So yeah, no, currently we are again, let's say at the 85%, 90% stage.
Thank you.
Councillor King, sorry.
On that note, I don't know if there's been a thought by this council, but I would like to set up like a council orientation through an outside organization to come in. I was thinking we've saved a lot of money by not going to AUMA, and there's a lot of real great workshops. 13 Ways is one that comes in. I don't know, who could we send information to just to send that? Because it's really, really nice for someone getting into it besides just the AUMA municipal quick one-day course to really understand your role and how to stay in your lane, what you need to do. And
So your worship to the councillor, yes, actually, that's what we are looking at these days. So if you have any suggestions, please send that to me on my way. AUMA offers some great information free of charge as well. So we are definitely looking at AUMA as well as some other external instructors as well.
Okay, so you're wanting feedback for this before you guys bring some information to us, or you're wanting feedback?
If you have any suggestions, to your worship, if you have any suggestions, please send it to me.
So the only suggestion I would have is that, well, you know, one of the greatest experiences for myself when I first got into it, we used to hire Gordon McIntosh. He was a guy that came in and he did strategic planning, but when it was a new council that was coming in, there was also an education part that came with it that talked about, you know, what your role is, what the administration's role is, proper protocol and communication, and where you play, what space you play in and what space you don't. And so we haven't booked anyone to do anything like that for the next council, but part of me thinks that that would be a good exercise to book it for them to hopefully utilize something like that. I always thought Gordon was great.
didn't he do our first year here? And along those lines, like, this is Doug Griffith. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I know
but,
exactly
like,
who Doug is.
fantastic. So like, I thought that would be a great resource.
So I would encourage administration to look at booking something for post-election that would include strategic planning and some education in like a 2-day thing, because I think it's very worthwhile. I think the strategic planning too is a great exercise, just from the sense that it helps council get on the same page, and you get momentum a lot faster by understanding what your role is, getting to know each other in that environment. You spend a couple of days together and kind of set some priorities about what you're, as a council, what you're trying to do. That, you know, I really think we would be advantageous to reach out to some contractors and book a date post-election. And I don't mean like January, I mean like November.
We should also pre-plan, we should also pre-plan minister meetings for AUMA and maybe some briefing notes, because that comes up literally a month after election time.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how.
I don't even think that they've solidified that they're doing AUMA in person yet, have they?
They have, yes.
Have they? Okay.
I've already booked you guys hotel.
The hotel, yeah.
You've booked 7 hotels, okay, I got it.
The rooms under the town.
Okay. What's that? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the AUMA,
Yeah, just get some briefing notes ready for the next council, just to put on our radar.
so we should make sure that at our meeting in September, that we budget some time at the committee of the whole to have some discussions and put together some briefing notes for minister meetings for AUMA that can then, when people get elected, they can just take and amend however they see fit, but that gives them some basis to get started.
When is AUMA? It's different in
November 9th.
It'll be November and after an election. Yeah.
19th, something like that.
November 16th to the 19th.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Okay, so reports of new business, lot grading. Pages 4 through 50, Sam.
I know, I don't get long. Hopefully we can breeze through it and not take too much time.
have absolutely 100% control of that.
I do not.
Okay.
Okay. I apologize. I just got back from holidays and I feel not prepared enough. That said, one of the items that we're going to discuss tonight is lot grading and why it's important, the history for the town of Slave Lake of lot grading, the evolution of the information we have received, why we should conduct lot grading inspections when we have a lot grade certificate submitted, the compliance process, examples of site inspections with pictures, lot grading settlement versus non-compliance, as well as the town of Slave Lake versus the city of Edmonton. So what is lot grading? It's the shaping of earth to allow surface water runoff to flow away from building foundations. Sorry, there is a thing on here that's bugging me and it is distracting me. Okay, got it gone. It's important because it directs the surface water away from structures preventing flooding, issues with waters in basements, backflow, etc. It's also important to ensure that the surface water within someone's property is not impacting any adjacent properties, and the water should be handled within the site. Okay, this is an example of what happens with the lot grading process. Very simplified. We receive an application, the process regarding lot grading. So the purpose of this presentation, we're going to focus on the lot grading certificates, visual inspections, and the compliance process, which is the bottom three pieces there. So as a result of the 2011 wildfires, the town of Slave Lake implemented its first lot grading process. The pre-existing drainage patterns in the southeast were particularly inefficient and led to many drainage issues prior to 2011. As such, after the 2011 fire, the town and associated engineering that it would be the perfect time to implement the lot grading process. The recovery inspector, a member of the recovery team, was in charge of lot grading inspections and okaying lot grading compliance. However, lot grading compliances were issued mostly based on positive drainage and not so much issued based on the previously approved lot grading plan and or the town's development standards and procedures. And this created great concerns among local developers, owners, and surveyors who stated that our process was inconsistent, which it was. So as a result, we held a meeting with those developers that were expressing concerns. And since Associated Engineering was instrumental in developing our lot grading process, Jeff Fetter also attended the meeting. So the purpose of that meeting was to, of course, assess and discuss the public's concern about our lot grading process, to improve our process if it was required, which in my opinion, it was. The meeting resulted in requesting more information be provided on lot grade certificates, which in a future slide I'll show you. Tweaking our lot grading process such that compliances would be issued entirely based on the comparison of the lot grade certificate and the town's current standards and procedures with tolerance levels built in, no longer just positive drainage. We sent a letter to all of the local developers and surveyors. This letter addressed the changes to our lot grading compliance process and requested more information be provided on the lot grading certificates. And no feedback was received at that time or since. And the understanding was that everyone was on the same page with increasing our consistency. Wow, that's weird. Why did that not show up? So in your packages, you'll see what it's supposed to look like on the screen. The first one is what we were receiving in 2012, which is basically the corners, which doesn't tell you if water is still going to drain to the basement or foundation of the home. In 2015, that changed significantly. We got a little bit more information. And by 2017, you're getting corners of the house, 3 meters from the corner, from each corner of the house, as well as usually in between the middle portion of the house, as well as all 4 corners and the middle of the lot, as well as directional arrows showing the way that the water should flow, as well as percentage grades. The only thing I wanted to note as well is that at that time, we were accepting lot grade certificates at rough grade. And now we only accept them at final grade, being that topsoil can be added as little as 4 inches up to 12 inches. And that makes a huge difference in lot grading and can create many issues for neighbors as well as the homeowner. Well, that's just really weird. There you go. There's the 3. So this is what our town's development standards and procedures establish a few regulations. The first being assessed in planning is that the slope percentage away from the foundation is 5%. The rationale here is that this area is expected to settle over time, and ultimately our minimum hope is 2%. Hopefully 3. If you have a 2 to 3% slope around the foundation at final grade and settlement has not yet occurred, you can end up with negative slope directing water towards the foundation of your home. The second regulation being assessed is, does the lot maintain the required lot grading design, either rear to front or split drainage, and if the lot has an overall 2% slope. So why do we care about lot grading? And it's to protect current and future landowners and homeowners. Why conduct lot grading inspections when we have lot grade certificates? And this is pretty easy to answer because the lot grading certificate is not a 3D rendering of the lot. And you can only see, first of all, that moment in time that they did the survey, as well as specific spots, not the entirety of the lot. So you can have pooling areas in between those numbers that are given on the lot grading certificate. And I'm not a surveyor expert, and I'm not bringing any equipment to the site, but I am reviewing the plan, the lot grade certificate, and the site to make sure that people are not going to have issues in the future. Here is what a 3D rendering would look like if we had people, and that's a lot of work, and it would cost people a lot more money to produce something like this. So during our inspections, we look at and assess the areas that are not indicated on the lot grade certificates. A grid map provides shots of 1 foot intervals right up to the foundation and underneath would be required to provide the exact site conditions, which is unheard of in any municipality we have researched. The reality is that requesting this level of detail would be onerous, time consuming, and expensive. Yes. During our site inspections, we simply look at and assess areas that are not indicated on the lot grade certificates, similar to what the red X's are on the map up there. We look at places which are not normally got to by the surveying equipment, under decks, under steps. Is there a slope doing this towards the house? Making sure that that's all been captured in that time. It's a part of due diligence to discover information that may be required in an official statement to ensure completeness. And it's a duty of care. It's a legal obligation which is imposed on an individual requiring adherence to a standard of reasonable care while performing any acts that could foreseeably harm others. So here's the question. If no visual inspections are done and the lot has major deficiencies which are not shown on the lot grading certificate, could the municipality be considered negligent? According to our lawyers, very likely. Again, when conducting lot grading inspections, we are not questioning the surveyed information. We are simply assessing the on-site conditions that are not shown in the lot grade certificate. If we haven't conducted that inspections, we have concluded the lot grading process without complete information. Further, we have provided no protection at all to the current landowner or future purchaser that the lot grading issues, if any, have been rectified. So this is a sample of, this one is for when I have a lot grade certificate. It's the end of the project and they're trying to close it out. So I look at what was submitted previously. Was there any issues noted up previously? Is there any issues on the present lot grade certificate that could have issues? And then finally I go out on site and take a look at what the concerns, if there are any, that I see on the lot grade certificate, are they showing up on the land? Typically, there's rarely issues that can't be solved simply adding a little bit more dirt. So this is our process. With lot grading certificates, with non-compliance is typically what happens when I receive a compliance certificate. Not because they don't have positive drainage, but because our standards are high.
Sorry, Sam, did I hear that right? You said typically you get non-compliant.
Yes. Not, like I said, not because they don't have positive drainage, but there are many who do. So in order to get compliance with a lot grade certificate, you have to have 5% all the way around the house and an overall lot of 2%. And in many cases, that percentage is 1% or 0. And so I can't give compliance when they don't meet the standard.
You're saying, on average, above average of the time.
Yeah.
Developers don't build to standard.
That is what I would say, yes.
Okay.
Now, having said that, they do give positive drainage. The house typically is at 5%. It's the overall 2% that's not there.
Okay.
So, usually, yes.
Back onto a park or something like that.
Yeah.
Water runs one way from the backyard.
Yeah.
Backyard runs to the other way.
Absolutely.
Just a simple say 2% around.
And that's why I said the standard is quite high, and so it's very hard to get. I want to say 10% will get, when I get their lot grade certificate, will get a compliance letter. Typically what they do is they get a letter respecting compliance with positive drainage. And so if they wish to get compliance, then they have to rectify the issues as indicated, because I sent them a copy of the lot grade certificate showing the areas that are an issue.
Okay, but that just highlights an issue to me that 90% of the people that are building don't hit our standard, because you said it's a high standard. So do we
It
need
is.
to, do we need to look at a different standard, or?
Honestly, I don't think so. We're not having issues of people having water in their basement. They still get positive drainage. They still have no issues with water for the most part going onto their neighbors' properties or into their basements. It's that standard, you have to be a surveyor / landscaper in order to get it, because you have to be able to get those grades
Okay,
at each point.
Councilor Bramble.
But are they able to close out their development permit?
Absolutely,
Even with just a positive?
absolutely, yeah,
Oh,
And get their deposit back?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I don't hold their deposit because they've gotten it would be a case of negative drainage towards the foundation, or their water is flowing onto the neighbors to such an extent it's causing damage to the neighbor for them to not get their deposit back until they fix and wrap those ramifications of that situation. Yeah, go ahead.
really, how long is a lot grading certificate good for? Because I know after the fire, when I was selling houses, I was, we were giving lot grading certificates with the RPR every time. And then for a couple of years afterwards, we were doing that too. But now that things have settled and we have lots of wind and we have had high flood water years, are they even good anymore at this point?
No. So typically what the surveyors are telling me is that after a winter season, the survey that was done is no longer as is. So if you get it done in September, by May, it's going to be settled and compact, and it's not going to be the same numbers as what was there. Which is why we ask for the 5% around the foundation, because we expect it to settle to that 2 to 3%. So if we don't get 5% at the corners, then that's a really big issue, because we know there's going to be settling.
Okay.
To clarify that
Yep.
now, so.
Mhm.
That, just because you've got a positive lot grading certificate, you're not requiring homeowners to go and get another lot grading certificate every year. You would do that again on sale of the property or
If there's an issue.
if there's an issue.
Only if there's an issue. I would not make them get a new lot grade certificate unless, I'm going to caveat this, unless there was such a huge issue with the original lot grading that it needed to be completely redone, which I've never had happen. So I'm hoping that never happens. Knock on wood to make sure that doesn't happen. I really don't want to put that expense on developers or landowners to add another lot grade certificate. I do try to do my best to help them figure out solutions for if there's issues with their lot grading that needs to be brought up. The water's not flowing where it's supposed to be flowing. How can we fix this? So this is an example of one that was done in 2016. And there was lot grade deficiencies, but you can't tell because according to the blue circles on there, there's no numbers. We can't tell what the lot grading was at that area. We also understand that it would be nearly impossible, of course, to represent the exact site conditions with a few elevations. So as you see circled there with the red, those are the main points of where there is lot grade percentages shown on this slide, which is not enough to tell if it's complying, first of all, or second of all, if there's positive drainage fully around the entire house. So that's what we look at in the office. So let's show you what we can look at during a visual inspection. So first of all, remember that our process has evolved through time. So the information presented on a lot grade plan and certificate has changed. We'll also be showing you information provided to us prior to conducting our lot grading inspections. And of course, yay, there'll be pictures. So do we refuse lot grade certificates that provide insufficient information? Yes or no? Yes, there could be additional costs. As I have said earlier, if it's at rough grade, I don't accept it. But they are all developers are told when they get their development permit, actually, I tell them before they even apply, typically as I'm speaking to them, that a lot grade certificate will need to be done and it'll have to be done after rough grade, after the grading is done, not just at rough grade. So if a lot grade is accepted, will a visual site inspection provide enough information about the on-site conditions? Typically, the on-site inspection will provide a bunch of information, but not enough to say whether or not it complies. So in the corner there, you see a lot grade certificate that was, when I started with the planning department, accepted as enough information. That was one of these properties. As you can see, there's a lot of a grade difference between those two houses. There's major drainage issues. I know that the recovery inspector and the planning department conducted several grading inspections and tried to work with the landowner to try and rectify the drainage. And in the end, on this property, he ended up putting a swale, cement swale down the side of his driveway to help mitigate the water coming forward. It was a bit of a swale and a retaining wall at the same time to try and fix that issue. So this is another one where there was no elevation shots near the house, but visual inspections noted significant low spots. This is the same backyard that has utility right of way, which of course means that this lot should have rear to front drainage. And with cement so close to the house, that was not graded correctly, the water was then going towards the foundation. I can't tell you what happened in this one because I didn't deal with this file. This shows how the water from the snow melt was going towards the foundation. So visual inspection was conducted in 2014 because the landowner wanted the planning department to resolve his drainage issues. It had been 4 years since we had conducted the initial site inspection, and with expected settlement over time, we can expect that negative slope actually worsening more. Come on. So what could be the consequences for future landowners if we issue a lot grading compliance without conducting inspection? If there is lot grading deficiencies and the municipality signed off on it, then could we be perceived as negligent and challenged legally? The municipality owes a duty of care when making operational decisions and can be liable if operational decision is made negligently. Brownlee, 2015. So, lot grading, if no visual inspections are conducted and the lot grade has major deficiencies, could put the municipality in a negligent position. And again, when conducting the lot grade inspections, we are not questioning the survey information supplied on the lot grade certificate. We are simply assessing the on-site conditions that are not shown on the lot grade certificate. If we haven't conducted that inspection, we conclude that the lot grading process without having all of the information. So on this particular one, there is negative drainage shown. And of course, it didn't come through. Apologize. I'm trying to remember what happened here. So lot grading was not, compliance was not given because it was negative drainage. But unfortunately, the picture's not showing. You can sort of see the green arrow, but there's a piece that went white that was not being shown, unfortunately. So in this particular property, how the water is draining off the site is supposed to be rear to front as seen by the lot grade certificate, little arrows. But the water, as seen by the second picture here, let me start the first picture. You can see that there's a slope that comes forward as well as to the side, so it's draining against this person's cement driveway. So this was a example of a lot grade plan that we received in 2012. And then the lot grade certificate that we received in 2016. And lot grading compliance could not be issued for this because we didn't have enough information. This is one of the examples I was telling you about with looking underneath decks. You can see clearly here that the water is draining towards the foundation, but it's not shown on the lot grade certificate. This is another one that is underneath a deck, that the deck is not shown on the lot grade certificate. At one point, we were requiring that the RPR or real property report was done at foundation stage. And we were finding that there was many issues of steps and decks that didn't comply. And so we changed that policy to change it to completion for the RPR. So property number 4. We're looking at this lot grade certificate in the office. The assumption is that the overall site is final graded. The lot grade inspection revealed that there were several areas on the site that were rough and not likely graded at all. And today, a lot grade certificate conducted at rough grade is not accepted, even if some of the site is final graded. The entire lot must be at final grade before the lot grade certificate is prepared. And this is because when doing the final grading, like I said previously, it can change the grades of the lot significantly. So by rough grading, we typically expect the grades to be smooth and ready to receive soil. And this property was extremely rough to the point where there was mounds of dirt and tall grass and areas that were not graded, I would say, at all. So in this particular picture, this whole area where that trailer was clay. It was not, there was no topsoil, nothing on there at the time of the inspection. Then we went around to the back of the house, and you can't see it really well in the picture, but on site, the water was draining towards the foundation, and that where the big weeds are there was actually piles of dirt in. That's why it wasn't mowed, was because there was big piles of dirt in there that was clay, not even soil. And then, even more fun, the sump pump, that lovely black hose, was just shooting out like that, causing a hole in the earth instead of having the extension pipe to gently bring it down to ground level. So as our lot grading process has evolved, we are noticing more and more lot grading. It says lot grading compliance, but I would say lot grading with positive drainage. That said, should we stop visual inspections? If we say yes, then there's no time invested in inspections. There's faster turnaround time with no winter months, and it could be preferred by builders and developers. And if we say no, then we have an issue of due diligence and duty of care. We're not seeing areas that are not surveyed. There is the possibility of future lot grading issues, and it provides protection to existing and future landowners. It does not provide. So fortunately, our progressive approach has resulted in major successes, and more developers are preparing well thought out lot grade plans and are properly conducting their lot grades. Surveyors are providing much more information on their documents that provide sufficient information for evaluation, and the percentage of lot grading certificates received during winter months could equate to less than 10%, and I would say even less than 5%. Typically, the last 3 years, I've received one in the winter months. And of that 10%, less than 2% would be considered complete and waiting on the lot grading compliance process to receive their development deposit and close the lot grading permit file, as was the case with the one that I received during the winter this year. The driveway is still not hard surface, so I can't even close out his file. I have done the lot grades inspection, the final inspection. I'm just waiting for confirmation that the driveway is complete. So in this example, the planning department knew before leaving the office that a lot grading compliance letter would be issued based on the information provided on the lot grading certificate. And the lot itself was well done. This particular development was not ready to be closed as the lot grading and final inspections were required. And during our final inspections, we look at the driveway width, the landscaping, exterior cladding to make sure that all of those things have been completed. That is a pretty comprehensive lot grading certificate shown on this example. And the whole site providing elevations that represent the on-site conditions throughout, including underneath decks and along foundations. So we're going to give you some examples of some poor lot grading. This was an area in the southwest. And in looking at these pictures, as someone who lives in the southeast, that's what my backyard looked like before 2011. Oftentimes there was water sitting around the fence. Quite a few issues of ponding in that area. This was another portion of a swale that we had to clean out in the southwest. Low areas in your lot grading, you won't necessarily see unless you go out because it's not showing the whole lot. You can see that there's low areas where water is ponding and sitting, which you can only see if you go out on site. This is to show how swales should be beneficial if they are done correctly in between close neighbors. And as this shows as a poor example, there is no swale in between the two apartments, and the sidewalk between the two houses is definitely doing this. So with the slope of the foundation on the left, the stormwater will flow to the neighbor's house. The downspout is facing towards the neighbor's property. The sump pump discharge on the left-hand side, the hose is draining their water down, but it goes all the way over to the neighbor's property as well, towards their foundation wall. So the first picture is a downspout that's been disconnected from the storm service. This downspout disconnected from storm service, which drains into a pipe that runs from between the floor joists. And then a downspout disconnected from the storm service and directed towards the neighbor's bylaw, which is highly against our bylaw. So here are some ways that lot grading improvement can be done. When you have an issue with a lot that's either higher than the other, or there's very little drainage and it's all ponding in between the homes, you can create a swale similar to what's been done here. And string line helps to set where the center line of the swale should be. So this is another example that can help is to put a raised edge on the sidewalk so that the water then has to drain out the front of the sidewalk or out the back of the sidewalk, and it doesn't drain onto your neighboring property. So in the town of Slave Lake, we get our lot grade plan. We review that. We check through, make sure there's giving positive drainage. Is there enough information? If it's in the southeast or for a place where we have lot grade plans already prepared by our engineers, then we compare them to that. Then we get the final lot grade certificate at the final stage. We get a visual inspection. Sometimes there's additional inspection if they have work that needs to be done. And then there's the issuance of a lot grading compliance letter or lot grading respecting compliance. In Edmonton, they have their lot grade plan, then they have a lot grade certificate at rough grade. They do a visual inspection to make sure that the grade is working properly by an actual surveyor. Then they have an issuance of a lot grading approval letter. Then they can do their landscape work, get a final lot grade certificate done, then another visual inspection, and then they get lot grading compliance or approval by the city. There is many more steps required there. These are a couple of documents that we've prepared to help educate on lot grading and flood prevention for our citizens. And they're available on our website, as well as if you call me, I'll email them to you, or I can print off a copy for you to pick up. I'm open to all of it. So any other questions?
Councillor Brendel.
So I heard you say a couple of times in this presentation that we weren't really getting compliance, but we're just getting positive drainage.
Yep.
So I get in the cases, and the pictures show 1,000, pictures worth of 1,000 words, whatever.
Yeah.
So I get where we don't have the positive drainage, but on the ones that you do have the positive drainage, back to Tyler's question, are our standards too high?
I think that if we were to lower them, that because we have that allowance in there, if we were to lower them, that would create even further issues and could potentially put us at risk. Simply because, say we lower it to 4, so then it settles and it's now less than 2%. Typically, if you have less than 2%, you're going to have the potential for issues around your foundation. So that's why I say I really would advise against lowering those standards.
Yeah, it's the liability to against the town. Okay, I get that, but it just seems like such an onerous process for a builder or owner, developer, knowing that these things are only worth, good for less than a year.
And 90% of them don't hit it.
Yeah, exactly. And they're $2,500 or $3,000 or something.
You're right, they're not hitting it, but they're darn close. But because my allowance is so low as 0.5%, that I can say, okay, you're 0.5% off here. I can give you compliance. If I was to change that to 1% or 2% and give them compliance, the possibility exists that lot grading can be changed after the fact that I've given compliance. And now it's no longer complying or even close to complying, because we see it all the time. People want to beautify their yards. They want to change things around. They dig out 2 feet beside their garage and put in a flower bed. And then there's issues with the foundation for the garage, or they do it up. They decide that they want to do a patio at the backyard, and it's now facing towards the house and creating drainage issues towards the house.
But that can always happen after
That can always happen, absolutely.
And really doesn't have anything to do with this process, though, right?
Not if they've been in the house for 5 years or whatever, that should be just on them then.
Yes, absolutely. It's the finished product that we need to say, yes, it's good enough and it's to a high enough standard that it shouldn't be coming back on the town as.
Okay. Councillor Graham.
So everyone's within 0.5%?
No, I'm not gonna
so-
say that. I'd have to go back and look at the last few that I've done. The last 3 that I can recall doing just before I went on holidays, there was at least 3 places where there was 0% grade. And I needed 2% to
So-
have.
So it's
to
at
say-
your discretion for compliance. Is that going to get messy when Joe Blow was at 4% and this guy's at 0.5% and he got passed, but he didn't? Like, I feel like we should have a standard and set it, or just lessen the standard for everybody and set it so that you're not getting heat from the general public or builder A from builder B.
I understand that. I honestly don't get any issues from the builders or the developers for not getting compliance, because number one, they get their deposit back. And number 2, if it is a case of flat area like that, I recommend that they add dirt and make sure that the drainage is as per the plan. If they decide to not do that, then the way the wording of the letter is that potential liability is now on them. Because I have asked for and requested that they fix the lot grading certificate, the lot grading, but I can't go back out because I'm not a surveyor and say, okay, you've got your 2% now, because that would require another lot grade certificate, which I don't want to impose that kind of a cost on them.
Makes sense. So you're not getting any developers going, okay.
No, I have not had any of them come back at me.
Councillor
complaining.
Brando.
Sorry, one more question.
That's okay.
So is there any time that, like, I understand when you first build a house, this is part of the whole process.
Yeah.
But is there any time, say I'm just doing renos to my house, is this going to get triggered?
Nope.
Like a driveway pavement
Nope.
could?
A driveway, even a driveway wouldn't, so it would be a permanent structure. So either a detached garage or a new home.
Okay, a garage too, right? Okay, so these are just going to be one-offs because we're not rebuilding entire streets again.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I can understand the standard being so high when we were rebuilding a whole town.
Mhm.
But now that it's just going to be one here and one there and a couple on a street, I don't know. I'm still struggling with the high standard.
Well, so I have a question then. Like, does Edmonton, 90% of theirs don't comply? There's only 2 scenarios here, right? Like if 90% of them don't comply, there's either an issue that our standards are too high,
Mhm.
right? And if our standards are the same as everyone else, but in other places they comply and 90% of ours don't,
Mhm.
then it's an education piece that maybe we need to have with the developers or whatever else.
So Edmonton wouldn't let you not comply. They won't give you your deposit back, and they will make you redo it until it fits their standards.
So ours are keeping it as high as theirs.
Yes. And because they require actually a lot grade certificate at rough grade, and then they require another lot grade at final grade. So you're required to have a lot grade plan, a lot grade certificate at rough grade, and then a lot grade certificate at final grade. And in between there, you need to have inspections done by the city's engineer.
Okay, so theoretically, in the city of Edmonton, they are hitting these, do they have the same metrics as we do?
I believe it's very similar. It would depend on the areas of the city.
They have different requirements for different areas of the city?
I'm not 100% certain, because I haven't heavily looked at what their lot grading requirements are. But I do know that their inspectors are very diligent about going out. We don't have the manpower to do that. We just don't.
Well, and realistically then, if our numbers are the same, the only way that we can push that education or whatever is through enforcement. And I gotta be honest, that's not the process I want to take at this point, so.
Which is why then it's positive drainage, not compliance.
I don't love with it. I don't love it, but I can live with it. Councillor Ferguson.
Just a comment, having gone through this process actually last year, so I didn't find the process overly onerous or whatnot. And I actually appreciate the process because I find that having gone through it, it helps protect the homeowner and adjacent properties. So it's just a comment.
Yeah. And your property was not a significant issue, but having seen some of the landowners where they're trying to infill in a space where there's development around them, there can be issues, especially if one landowner's here and the other one's here and they're somewhere in the middle. They have to make their lot grading work in between that. And sometimes that's difficult.
Fair enough. Mr. Kim wants to play.
Thank you, Sam. And just to support the presenter here, in a big city such as city of Edmonton or Calgary, most of the lot developments have been done through the subdivision development. So as part of the subdivision plan, you are required to submit a lot grading plan for the entire subdivision lots. So that's the engineering drawing. And once it's done, and once the inspector inspected it, you're good to go until you change the lot grading. And then that geodetic information that was done as part of the subdivision gets stored. So it gets reproduced every time whenever there's a request. So the the builder would only pay about $100 to reproduce that geodetic information, grade slips, and et cetera. So, and the rest of it is just when there's a neighbor's dispute about the drainage and whatnot, the inspectors will go out with that grade certificate, whether or not it is complied or not. And if it is not complied, we'll use that geodetics to say, oh, you have to change accordingly. And that's so it is pretty much lot grading is in between land development and the building permit. And that's the reference point. It's a connection point. And once it is done, it's pretty much done deal. The town or cities don't go after the developers or builders to do it again and again.
No.
Okay. There's no more questions. Motion to accept as information. Thank you, Councillor Brendel. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we will jump into ball diamond discussion. I'm guessing you're Gary Roth.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here to discuss ball diamond sport field service levels. Purpose of this report is to outline the sport field service levels, primarily focusing on the ball diamonds and baseball diamonds. So the background in Slave Lake, there are a number of sport fields used for different sports. Soccer predominantly uses the fields at Roland Michener Secondary School, and the town has a partnership with a joint use agreement with High Price School Division on maintaining that space. Ball user groups consist of Slave Lake minor ball Association, men's baseball, the South Shore Baseball League, and slow pitch. Each of these have different standards and have diamonds dedicated primarily for their sport. The parks are outlined here. We have Sinclair 1, which has grass infields with cutouts, and that's used by minor baseball. Sinclair Diamonds 2 and 3 have turfus infields and grass outfields. That's used by minor ball. Sinclair Diamonds 4 through 7 are all grass fields, and those are the minor baseball are used for T-ball. Across Highway 88, Charity Diamonds 1 and 2 are grass fields used for slow pitch. Charity 3 is grass fields with infield cutouts, and that's used by minor ball and men's baseball. And Charity 4 is the multi-use diamond that we have over there, which is a grass infield. Just a note here that turfus is now the standard product that's used for infields versus traditional shale. So diamonds have different maintenance standards depending on the type of infield and amount of usage. Overall, there's essentially two components to the maintenance. It's the turf and the infield. In 2019, administration adopted a higher standard for turf maintenance. We recognize that sport fields are a higher priority due to the visibility in the sport that is being played. The standard includes ensuring that the turf is cut to a height of 7.5 centimeters with growth not exceeding 10 centimeters in height. So in general, this means that turf is mowed approximately 1 to 2 times, and it's dependent on the growth season, on the conditions. So an additional consideration to the maintenance of the turf is that the fields are not irrigated. So we have no irrigation at the fields, at either of the fields. So this does affect the maintenance that can be done in the fields. Without irrigation, excess play and additional maintenance or additional mowing can lead to overuse, as well as causing damage to the grass, which allows more weeds to grow. Turf areas are aerated, leveled, rolled, and overseeded and fertilized. In general, that's done twice a year. Herbicides are used as a as-needed basis for weed control, focusing and maintaining on the infields. Infield maintenance includes weekly edging and trimming of the cutouts. The diamonds with turfus infields are drug once a week by the town contractor. The equipment has been made available to Slave Lake Minor Ball to provide additional dragging as they require. Foul lines are installed and then updated after the cuts and the dragging. Our parks crews also take care of the outside areas around the grandstands and around the areas on checking the garbages 3 to 4 times a week. Porta potties are provided by a contractor who also services them on a weekly, once a week. The town also supplies materials for repairs like mound clay and turfus for both Slave Lake Minor Baseball Association and the Men's South Shore League for repairs during game time or tournaments. So for the batter's boxes and the pitching mounds as they get used. Due to the specialized nature of ball diamond maintenance, most of the work has been contracted out. The parks facilities and parks manager, along with the MRC park supervisor, have operational responsibility to ensure that that work is being completed. In the event of significant rain, the town may close the fields and cancel bookings. Users may also cancel games because of weather. That just results in makeup games throughout the season. Maintenance is very dependent on bookings and communications is made with the contractor to try and have the fields in good condition for key bookings. One of the challenges that we have is user groups do not always book the fields or book it last minute, and then they become disappointed by the service level. Due to the nature of additional maintenance requirements, the Sinclair baseball fields are locked. There's been discussion on locking the Charity men's baseball field as well. So these fields must be booked for use. The public is encouraged to use the T-ball fields at Sinclair or the remaining fields for casual use at Charity. So we have included usage is also a challenge. So the ongoing costs associated with this maintenance for the relatively low usage, summary of average weekly is noted here below. We've used 2019 hours to what we have currently for this year. So in addition, Slave Lake Minor Baseball Association has scheduled hosting weeks or weekends where they host league play at Sinclair Diamonds. This is where visiting teams come to Slave Lake. So the number of hosting weekends that we've had from season to season varies. So in 2001, we've had one, and in 2019, we had one as well. Slow Pitch will also hold tournaments from time to time. The needs and demands of tournaments are typically reviewed with the tournament organizers as part of the planning. Organizers may be required to supply and or pay for some of the services required depending on their needs. For example, slow pitch tournament organizers may want to have more porta potties because they have more teams, hand washing stations, bring additional garbages or dumpsters in, and anything else that they wish to provide. So in the past, we've had food vendors, beer gardens, and requests for camping. Slave Lake Minor Baseball Association has approximately 150 youth registered players for 2021, with the majority of those players in T-ball. Slow Pitch has 7 teams registered in their league this year. There were 22 teams in 2019. Men's baseball currently has 2 teams. So every 2 years, administration carries out a survey of like municipalities to ensure that our rates are comparable. Rates are then set by bylaw, and at present, we charge $17 an hour for youth rentals and $34 an hour for adult bookings. It should be noted that 2021 is an atypical year for our maintenance and usage, with the transition between stages for the open to summer plan. Administration was not performing the same service levels until there was an indication that play was resuming. At that time, the contractor needed some time to effect the required maintenance. As well, usage is lower, and users have modified their seasons. So everybody had a little bit of a later start. So Slave Lake Minor Ball usually would start in May and go till June. And this year they're going from June into August. So areas for discussion that we've come up. Slave Lake Minor Baseball Association has expressed an interest for increased service levels for mowing, to have the fields mowed 2 times a week. And this is against the standard that we have in place, which is mowing based on the grass height. This would ensure consistency for their practices and their playability of their fields. However, there would be an added cost of approximately $5,800 per year, which is an approximately 30% increase on the service level there, as well as a concern for damage to the turf from over maintenance for cutting it so close back to back. So to date, the increase costs would be 100% town responsibility. There has been no indication of an increased contribution from Slave Lake Minor Baseball Association. Minor Ball has expressed a desire to have an increased service level, to have the turfus infields at Sinclair 2 and 3 dragged a minimum of twice per week by the town. The cost was also factored into the $5,800 per year. So if we do not change the standard for mowing, then there would be an additional breakdown for that additional cost of dragging. Slave Lake Minor Ball has indicated that they may be in a position to pay for a conversion of Sinclair 1 from grass infields to turfus this fall. Administration has proposed that they should submit to the town for this request. Again, dragging and other maintenance costs would have to be considered as well. So that would be another increase of about 15% or approximately another $3,000 added on to that service level. Currently, no outstanding service level concerns have been raised by any of the other ball field users. Administration recognizes the need for contracts with user groups for sports fields, which would include service levels as part of the agreement, and we are currently working towards this. So the resource impacts, you can see that the expenses that we expend there, the revenues and the cost sharing that we get, the net expense. So we're at approximately about a 43% cost recovery rate for the fields currently. So administration has worked with the current contractor to keep the service levels within budget in spite of the changes in demands by the user groups over the past 4 seasons. This currently has no policy implications or no communications at this time. So our recommendation for council, so we've provided some options. One, direct administration to keep service levels at the same service level. 2, direct administration to increase the service levels as requested by Slave Lake Minor Ball Association for mowing and dragging. Or 3, to direct administration to seek a hybrid of changes to service levels, such as maintaining the turf service and increasing the infield service level dragging. Current administration recommends that the service levels remain status quo for the 2021 and 2022 seasons.
Okay, discussion from council. Councilor Grumbuck.
What, you said there was the cost would be different if you took out the cutting and the dragging. What is the difference between the mowing and the dragging?
It would, it would be about 40 change. We didn't pull those numbers out because we looked at what the request was, and that's what we looked at.
So sorry, maybe I asked, like, on part of this was your costs, if we increase this by $5,800, that includes the dragging with it, right?
That would include the grass cutting and the dragging.
The dragging is about 40% of that?
No, it would be that cost for those two diamonds.
So could you, okay.
That would be the cost for both the extra cutting and the dragging, the extra dragging.
And do you know what the dragging cost would be out of that? Because I'm just thinking about
40% of it.
40%.
Yeah, I think it'd be about 40% to just.
In my opinion, like, I'm willing to work with users. Maybe that's the give and take this year. We will cut the grass extra. Sorry, Slave Lake Minor Baseball, you're gonna have to drag it. Like, we'll come up with the 60%. You figure out the other 40. And that might be a solution they can work with.
Okay, other questions, comments from council? Councilor King.
At this point, I know we're struggling with staff. I don't think we have the capacity to take on extra anything. And I'm good with leaving it as is. We've given quite a bit over the years, and we just recently changed the ball diamonds back to whatever shale, I don't know. One of those for them, which added extra costs onto us, extra maintenance. And yeah, I'm good to leave it as is for now.
Other questions, comments from council? Councilor Brandel.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all for leaving status quo too. We don't, like, this was a condensed year. We don't know what next year is going to look like. So I don't want to start changing things until we get back to absolute normal. And even if then.
Okay, Councilor Ferguson.
So the net expense here, if I'm reading it correctly, is just over 21,000, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So my thoughts on this is, budget's already been done for the current year, is that we revisit it at budget time. Would be my thoughts on it. Or the next council revisits it at budget time.
Yeah, so I'll jump in and say that I throw a ditto at that big one. So first off, I will say that, one of the things, and when Gary was here and we had a discussion, was around the fact that, take minor ball out of it for a second, right? We have these fields and so on and so forth. We kind of have this hybrid operation that operates with the ball diamonds compared to our other facilities. So at other facilities, we look after stuff 100%. It's subsidized and away we go. And here, so the ball users are doing some of the work. We're doing some of the work. And so, I guess the thing is then our facility is only ever going to be as good as the strength of the volunteers that are out there, the organizations doing that. And I struggle with some of that just from this perspective of, we talk about it's our asset. So how do we look after and maintain and protect our own asset? And so an example, if, and for me, a lot of it goes around the dragging. So if we need to drag the fields twice a week to be able to maintain them so that we're not overgrowing and having to basically dig them up every time or whatever, returface them and get it all done, then I'd rather do that standard. And then there's two ways to do that standard. The standard becomes either, one, we absorb that. Well, there's three ways. One, we just absorb that in taxpayers. Two, we have an agreement with the group that says, okay, we're not going to change your user fees, but this is your obligation. So then it becomes a clear understanding between us and the users about what is expected. Or three, we're going to start doing that, but we're adjusting your user fees and you're wanting a higher standard and we're going to recoup some of those expenses and away you go. And so realistically, part of the reason that this comes up is and they continue to push on, they get frustrated about having to do some of the work themselves and it's not to the standard they want. And so I really think it's extremely important that we lay out, you talked about having these discussions, laying out a clear agreement about who does what. I think that piece is paramount. And I would say that, I think we're a little late in the year to start changing standards here at this point. I think we get through COVID here, and I agree with the staffing pieces, but to say just leave it again the same way for next year, that's not where my head is at. My head is like, let's have some discussions with the group over the next couple of months and say, where is your comfort level? Are you willing to pay more for a higher standard? Are our standards out to lunch? Like if we look at our standards compared to other rural municipalities, I don't even look at the city of Edmonton, but if, Lac La Biche and Athabasca and Peace River and High Prairie and everybody only drags theirs once a week and we're doing ours too, then, okay, minor ball, if that's what you're wanting, then okay, we need to have a discussion about that's a higher level. On the opposite perspective, if they're all dragging theirs twice a week and we only do once, we should have a question internally about our own dragging and how those pieces work. And so I would like to have some discussion there over the next few months there with those groups, clearly identify who's doing what and who's not doing what. And then once we decide what we're doing, how we're going to pay for that, and if there is a budget implication, discuss it this year and not just leave it for 2 years because it's easy. So there's nothing more frustrating for council and administration and users to not be on the same page. So we should make a priority to get on the same page and move forward is kind of where my head is at. Councillor King.
I'm along the same lines. I thought that was the direction we had given administration already. Maybe I was mistaken. I thought we gave direction for status quo for the rest of this year and we were going to relook at it after the kind of agreements were made at our last meeting.
Okay, so then I misunderstood because this motion says that we're leaving it the same for 2021 and 2022. And some of council started saying, yeah, let's leave it and not change it. So I'm saying leave it for this season, but hey, over the next few months, get on the same page with minor ball, figure out the standard that we should be at. If there's a budget implication, it comes to us at budget. And before we start the season next year, everyone knows what standard that we're going to, everyone knows who's doing it, and everybody knows who's paying it for it.
I just thought that was the last motion we made, was exactly basically what you just said.
Our last motion was to bring a report and have a discussion. So that's why they bring out here today. So, my thought would be to make a motion that administration work with user groups, compile information, comparative information of service levels in regards to other communities, and bring back a report at budget time for the next council to discuss. And that gives you council has an understanding of what it's going to cost and what it is, gives you time to work through the winter season with that user group to get everything solidified. And hopefully that council at the time has the vision to say, okay, we need to get this recorded and put it down before you start the season. Because I honestly believe that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. And so for me to say that you guys should drag it twice a week, 3 times a week, or once a week, what's everybody else doing? What do we need to do to maintain our own facility? And if we're going to reduce fees and allow them to use it at a more subsidized cost and make it more affordable, and they're willing to put in sweat equity, I don't think that's a bad solution, but it needs to be written down and everybody needs to know what it is.
And for 2021, remain status quo.
2021 remain status quo. I think we got enough to deal with that. We start that discussion, we start whatever. I think all groups would be satisfied that knowing that that's the process moving forward. I think that shows that we're on a path to at least get on the same page.
Like, I support all that, but to say we're short staffed so we can't do it's a lie, because our staff aren't cutting the grass. We're outsourcing it. So
there's dragging and.
No, that's what I want to discuss. Like
we contract the dragging.
You guys drag it. We can't do that. Can we not find a way to cut the grass so it's playable? Because to cut the grass once a week, and I'm not a baseball guy, so Joy's been to ball diamonds 100 times. You could tell me how it works with kids. If it rains, your grass grows higher. Like if the kids can't practice on the grass, if it was the arena, we wouldn't not flood the ice. They need to be able to practice on it is the complaint here. And the dragging, they could discuss that, or I don't know enough about it, but can we not cut the grass so it's at a playable level throughout the practice week?
Isn't that the standard it's at now?
No, it's once a week.
No, it's not. It's at a certain height.
Well, it's once a week, and if it grows more, they're doing it twice a week.
Yeah.
They're not doing it.
To answer that, Councillor, is that currently we're running at 7.5 centimeters to 10, which is playable, which is standard across other communities. This is something that we have worked on through the last 4 years to improve our standards. So we have increased our standards to meet that. In 2019, we did change sport fields to be a specific standard. It used to just be a cutting level for that. And we used to just, and absolutely, it used to be like hay fields out there. It would just get cut once a week and we'd forget about it. So we have working on the during growth periods, identifying when it is, and then having that cut so that it's within that standard. So what Slave Lake Minor Ball is asking is that they have practices have 2 teams that practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So they want to have a cut on Tuesday and have it drug. And then on Thursday, have it drug, and clearly asked. So we're not going to cut it from Thursday all the way around back to Tuesday. So it will sit for a long period of time. So they're asking for 2 cuts within 2 days. And what the standard was that we started or that we've worked to in investigating with many other municipalities is that they're on that height, on a growth section. We work through the growth. When it gets there, we make the cut. So during high growth time, May, June, when everything's growing, we're cutting it once every 5-6 days. It's getting cut twice a week. And then as the season grows on, then you're only cutting it as it's meeting the growth. So right now in the heat wave last week, we maintained it twice. They canceled on us. So we're trying to identify that standard that if we keep dragging it on a regular basis and it's not, dragging and cutting are two different beasts here, right? So when they put in the when they requested to put in the turfus, for the 2 fields there, we talked with our contractor at that time and we said, is there going to be a difference in the cut level and in the service level, and would be able to capture that with what we currently were spending on our service levels? And contractor at that time identified that it wouldn't be an increase. We'd be able to maintain that. We talked with Minor Ball at that time about providing them that, so we get it drugged once, we'll be fine. If they could drag it, if they had the equipment that they could maintain it as well. So that's how we moved forward without an increase in service levels. So now Slave Lake Minor Ball is coming back with asking for higher service levels. And that's kind of.
But we could confidently say the grass is cut within that standard. I could say your grass is cut between 7 and 10, like you're at the standard that we've decided we provide.
I go out and check, and if it starts growing, we're in high growth season, I contact our contractor and they're out there.
Okay. As long as I could say that, then I'm good.
I mean, and at Charity right now, because we only have 1 booking where we have the 2 teams for minor, we're doing the maintenance either on Sunday or on the Monday to do that. That's how we're doing it. So the other thing that's identified or gets missed here is when they have additional time that comes in, we talked about it, is we really try to identify the extra maintenance or additional maintenance on maintaining the fields through bookings. So that really initiates the maintenance program. When there's a booking, we can make sure that there's additional maintenance so that we can use our budget dollars accordingly to when it's being used and activated. And that's kind of that concern, is that if we don't know there's a booking, we haven't initiated the service to make sure we're weeding and getting those things done.
Okie dokie.
Okay. So I got a motion on the floor. Any other discussion?
So just to clarify, the motion is.
Read it off first, please.
Council direct administration to keep the service levels as is from the 2021 season and work with user groups to compile comparative information of service levels in other communities and bring back information at budget.
Through your worship, I'd just like to add one more thing. And the reason that we had identified for 2021 to 2022 was our current contract with the contractor is due this year. So this is the last year for them. We also don't know what next year's service level costs will be because there could be differences. The other piece to that is that my expectation is that Slave Lake Minor Ball will come back with a motion or with a request to do Diamond 1 at Charity. So that could impact our service level. So that's why we thought we would maintain for this year. That was why our request is if we maintain it for this year, next year, so we can identify how that service level goes. Because it puts administration a little pressured to make sure we have a service level for an additional field moving forward with going back to our contractor or putting it out for bid for the next 3 years.
Okay, so let's back up here then for that. So you're saying that because that the contractor's contract is done the end of this year, correct? That we should wait and determine what that's going to be for 2023 because so then we're just going to bid out the same thing in 2022, right?
Well, our plan is to have your worship and council, our plan is to have a user agreement with the ball, with Slave Lake Minor Ball, Slow Pitch, South Shore, to have a user agreement with all our ball users this year. So that's our goal, to get that, so that would assist us
before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year, as we go into budget, so we would know what we're looking at.
Okay, but you're not going to tender out the cutting and work until next year anyway, correct?
Well, we'd like to do it sooner than later.
Okay, so typically when would you contract that out? Like I'm just thinking, if you have the user agreements in place before the end of the year, our grass cutting contract tender came to us this year in April, right? Like theoretically, like with respect, I get that, okay, all of a sudden they're going to change one diamond, but one diamond's going to skew the thing a few $1,000s that we'd have to figure out at that time. I just want to delay it for another 12 months because of that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, am I missing a piece here?
No, your worship, that was the reasoning for that, is to give us that opportunity to make sure that we have worked with that one user group for the last 4 years to get to a service level, and the ask continues. So we're just trying to make sure we get that in place before we move forward.
Well, and then that's why I think it's paramount to get that done.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you're doing it at the end of the year. But theoretically, then couldn't that potentially skew the service level? Because council then has already, like, if we say, okay, this is like this for 21 and 22, we've already determined that what the service level is for next year before your discussion is even done with them.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I don't love that. So I'm saying, hey, let's say we're hard lined on 2021, finish your discussions. Let's figure out 2022 based on that. And then everybody knows what they are getting into for next year. So I'm leaving my motion the way it is. Councillor McGregor.
So you're saying it's taken you 4 years to get to where you are now, and then we'd like you to do it in the next 6 months? What's taken you 4 years to work with this user group? Now with this motion, we would like you to have all of this done before the end of the year. So you're going to work I see where you're coming from. It's taken you 4 years to get to this. I'm not sure you're going to get where you want to be in 6 months with the user group. That's why I'd be fine to leave it for 22, but I'll be the only one. But just so you know, that 4 years to get to this, and we're going to ask them to do 4 years worth of stuff in 6 months with this group. So it might be a little difficult of a task.
Yeah, and I'll just throw out, I don't think we're starting from scratch here. We're just formalizing what we're going to do for next year. So I don't feel like there's a mountain to climb here. It's just a matter of writing some stuff down and everybody knowing what we're doing moving forward. Okay, motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Okay. Let's jump into let's take a 5-minute recess real quick. Okay. Let's get back into it. So, next report, January, June, actual versus budget financials. Roland.
Okay, good evening, your worship and members of council. Administration has reviewed the financial position of the town of Slave Lake as of June 30th, 2021 and assembled a report to show the year-to-date expenditures versus budgeted amount, not including amortization costs or reserve transfers. And that are the two reports that follow the verbal report here. For utilities receivable, total amounts receivable for utilities stood at $208,704. $110,770 are current or under 31 days. 62,000 are between 32 and 60 days, and 35,000 are greater than 90 days outstanding. For taxes receivable, the total amount of receivable for taxes is $4.3 million. This represents $3.4 million for the 2021 year, $775,000 for the 2020 year, and $107,000 for years 2019 and previous. Amounts on the tax installment payment program or on a monthly contracted payment amount total $3.3 million. So that just gives us a kind of an up-to-date end of June look at where taxes are sitting for the year. So the bulk of the money is in the monthly payment and the tax installment payment program. So everything appears to be on track. Attached to the report is the year-to-date actuals versus budget report. All the taxes for the year have been invoiced. Overall revenues are in line with expectations for this time of year, except for user fees and sale of goods. With the facility closures that extended into the summer months, as well as limited capacity reopenings, revenue in these areas are low. Expenditures for the year are slightly below expectations. Not all of June's billings has been entered into the financial system as the date of this report. Wages continue to trend a bit lower due to vacant positions, and utility costs are also trending a bit lower just due to the fact most facilities have been closed to the public and are not being fully utilized.
Okay, questions, comments? I got a quick one there. Roland, so, largely is we got a 4.3 outstanding in taxes and 3.3 that's, our regular monthly stuff. So we got $1 million left over, which is basically, the bulk of that is the 2020 and 2019 outstanding. So are those numbers, the 2019 doesn't scare me at 107, but the 2020 at 775, is that a normal reflection of what we'd see? Is that higher than normal?
I would say over the year it's slightly higher than in previous years, but not too significant.
Okay. I have no other questions. Councillor King.
Make a motion that council accepts this report as information.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Article 11, 28.
Okay, so the next report is a collaboration of the finance department and just kind of reviewing our tax installment payment program. So the purpose is to rescind the old bylaw number 31, 2017 and enact a new bylaw, bylaw number 11, 2021 for the pre-authorized tax installment payment plan bylaw. So just a bit of a background as to the MGA Act and what allows us to take on this process. So a council may by bylaw permit taxes to be paid by installments at the option of the taxpayer. A person who wishes to pay taxes by installments must make an agreement with the council authorizing that method of payment. And so this bylaw outlines the requirements people need to take in order to go on that plan. So overall, the update of the bylaw takes into consideration the changing needs of our residents and our commitment to meet the standards outlined in our customer service charter. General overview of the changes are as follows. The bylaw now includes a requirement of minimum of 6 months post-dated check payments upon application. Allows us to calculate the payments starting from the date of the application by rolling the missed months into the remaining payments, but still requires the payments of all outstanding taxes, levies, penalties, and adjustments up to prior to signing up. So basically, in other municipalities, you can only kind of jump into this program pre-January. Like you have to have everything good and ready to go, and then you can do it for the next year. What we're trying to do here is that, okay, January, February, March, you didn't get your stuff in, but now you really want to join the plan. As long as you've got everything caught up, we'll recalculate it and we'll join you on middle of the year. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're all caught up, you can be in September. If you want to do that. So that allows residents at any kind of point in the month, as long as they're in good standing, to join the program. So they don't have to wait till the next year to kind of get on this budget plan that kind of helps everybody out. So we did, we were working with people as best we could last year for COVID and the delayment of taxes. And we just saw that there was no negative kind of consequences of taking this approach. And it was really something that we felt helped the residents of Slave Lake to be able to jump on a budget or payment plan, any time of the year instead of having to wait an entire year to jump on an additional feature. So payment recalculations will be done twice per year in January and June, or anytime an account needs to be adjusted to bring the account to a zero balance by December 31st. The twice per year regular recalculations will help to eliminate the yearly over and under payments on some tax accounts. And during the uncertain time that the town has been working with their residents to ensure that they can continue to pay their taxes in a timely manner, with some concessions due to the changing financial situation. These changes also align with our continuing commitment to provide clear communications and to continue to update our office policies, procedures, and bylaws as the circumstances and needs revolve around us.
Questions? I got one. So first off, I love the fact that our administration, and particular finance, is looking at customer service options that provide better flexibility to our residents. I think that's great, and that's the message overarching that I want you to take back to the group. I appreciate the ingenuity and the hard work there. Just the one. So, basically what happens is I want to get on the pre-authorized payment plan. This is what this is all about. But I can only jump on there if everything's all cleared up. Why can't I just jump on there now and you just adjust my payments to pick up the months that I'm behind?
Because I don't think that would service a lot of people. And we want to make sure that you're cleared up before this is an additional service once you have cleared up your account. Some of the times, if you're not fully caught up, that means you're in arrears and you're probably already on a contracted monthly payment plan already. That's handled separately. This is strictly to help those people who are current in their taxes and want to switch to a different method instead of annual to monthly.
Okay, so hypothetical scenario, I owe $3,000 in taxes July 1st. I don't pay it September, October, my interest is building. I'm like, oh my God, I want to get on a payment plan. At least I can start doing that. But I can't do that because I got to clear up first.
You'd have to pay your penalties. So whatever the penalty amount is, as long as that's cleared up, then we could take the remainder and chuck it into the rest of the year. So like in September though, right? I mean, you got October, November, December. So your payments are going to be like really massive.
Right.
But we can, that's certainly an option. And then on a go forward basis, so that's why we recalculate in
November, December can jump into the payment plan. It's just the penalty I have to clear up.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay off October, November.
No, because we're going to figure out what you owe for the rest of for the year in the last 3 months of the year.
Okay. So it's not like all of a sudden, because if I'm a person, I'm struggling with that amount or whatever else. And now you want me to shell $1,000 to get caught up so I can start doing a pre-authorized payment plan. I struggle with that one. But if it's only the penalties they have to pay off and you're taking that and building it into a monthly payment plan, that makes sense.
As long as they're current. So if you owed 2019, I think it says, say you owe $4,000 for 2019. And then in 2020, you want to you want to go on this payment plan, you have to pay off 2019 and all of the penalties. And then now you're current in the 2020 year to go on the plan, right? This doesn't help you if you're in arrears.
Councilor Brown.
So theoretically, don't we already work with people who are in arrears
Yes.
by putting them on a payment plan?
Yes, but
So
that's
what's the
separate.
difference?
That's a separate contract, and we deal with that separately outside of the tax installment payment plan. So we do have contracts for people who are in arrears, And we work with them on a case-by-case basis to determine a fair amount that they have to pay, because sometimes in those cases, the repayment plan for them is greater than a year or 2 years.
So
And there's a
if they're-
maximum limit of up to 3 years that we can work with them.
So if they're in arrears, we can put them on a payment plan, but if they're caught up, we can still put them on a payment plan. So regardless, we're still
They're
gonna
just
put them on a
different payment
payment.
plans.
plan?
Yeah, this one is really just to help your annual ratepayer.
I think we're overthinking this.
Yeah. We do have other methods for those people in arrears that we work with that are outside of this
Councillor King.
scope.
I echo Mayor Warman's thoughts, and I think it's a great idea. If you're caught up, you hop on that payment plan if you need to, and it's a year by year thing. And it's a great extra level of service that is of no cost to us at all. So a great job to the finance.
Yeah, and I think one of the big bonuses is with ours, and a lot of other municipalities have gotten rid of it, and I don't even think the cities do it. We still allow the checks. So we are very mindful that not everybody in the town of Slave Lake wants to use the bank, online banking, and all those options there. And so we still service those people who want to pay by checks, and we recognize that.
I appreciate that we do that. Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
So please refresh me. Do we currently accept credit cards for tax payments?
No credit cards for tax payments, no.
Is that something that we could possibly look at exploring for a small service fee, just as an added level of service?
Runs in my mind. I'll have to recheck into if we can accept that or not. Most other places do not. So
the only reason that you wouldn't though is because you don't want to pay the percentage, right?
yeah.
Came to a report from council before.
Yeah, I can bring that back now that we do have the pay simply.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't foresee somebody wanting to do that, because like if you're paying $4,000, it's something like $250 service fee. But I can definitely look into having that option on there depending on the requirements around the
Well, I'm
MGA.
thinking too, it's also maybe just another option for us, for people to help catch up on arrears and stuff like that. Just another option possibly presenting to residents. So.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Okay, other questions, comments? Councillor King?
I'll make a motion that bylaw 11/2021 receives first reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Gramack?
Motion that bylaw number 11/2021 receives second reading.
Discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Ferguson?
Be it resolved that council gives unanimous consent to send bylaw number 31/2017 for third reading. Wait, that should be 2021. No, number 11/2021.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be amended in the minutes.
Amended. Motion captured. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Lastly, Councillor Brandel.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 11/2021 receives third and final reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, checks over 50,000, page 67 in our package, rolling.
All right, so the checks in this report go up to June 29th. And just specifically because the date of this report was June 30th and we didn't have the checks in for that date. So to update, there's been 7 checks /EFT transfer payments in excess of $50,000. Housing Authority received their second requisition. The Slave Lake Public Library received their annual contribution. The Airport Commission received their annual contribution. And the Legacy Center payment includes the 2020 contribution payment, as well as the 2021 contribution payment and the remainder of interest on the grant held by the town for the Legacy Center from prior years. In addition to that, there's been 3 checks for capital projects. The first one for Jack Inc. includes payments totaling $60,000 for the pool basin improvements /repairs. Payment for the raw water line to Brownlee for $640,000. And the sewage lagoon project includes 1 payment to 726619 Alberta, operating as Rough Rider International for $71,000. And payroll checks relating to payroll expenses totaled $636,000 for the period.
Okay, questions from council? Councillor King.
Make a motion that council accepts this report as information.
Any discussion? All the questions, those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Committee minutes. Okay, intermunicipal committee. So we had a meeting, I think it was on the 21st. Talked about the all-in event that is happening in August there that Councillor Gramick and Councillor Brandel and Tourism Society are really spearheading there. We went over the intermunicipal cost sharing agreement financials update, which is just some project stuff that was left over that was very unexciting. We went through the fire services cost sharing agreement as well, financial update. Intermunicipal agreement and the fire service agreement. We reviewed both of those with the MD to go over costs and where things were projected. One was a little higher, one was a little lower, so the net impact was pretty minimal. The MD gave us an update on the Canyon Creek Campground and Harbor. For those that don't know, that's been a contentious issue out in their area, and they wanted to let us know what was going on there. Largely, they've taken it over, but from a liability standpoint, there's a bunch of stuff that has to be done. They were hoping to see some stuff open here in the summer months, and away we go. And we talked about boat launch. So the MD boat launch, kind of what is the plan for it? What are they looking at doing out there? They do have some funds. They're not sure how much funds they have. There's $100,000 that was given to them by the it was GM that I think that spearheaded it, but it might have been like an automotive association after the fire. And so the MD has been sitting on that. It was earmarked for the boat launch area. They have spent some of it, do some cleanup previously, but they're not sure how much and how much was left over. Really curious to know what they were going to do with that. And was there a role for the town to play in that or how that all looked? And so really didn't get into a bunch of discussion other than that they were looking into doing something and will get back to us. So it was a lot of preliminary information sharing. The biggest thing was making sure that the costs associated with intermunicipal and fire services were understood and accepted, and we moved on. Any questions? Councillor King. Oh, you turned on your mic, so I thought maybe you're...
I'm next. I'm just waiting.
Oh, sorry. Okay. If there's none, we'll move on to watershed. Sorry.
That's great. So we had our AGM last month. Some highlights from the year is our board got together and did a new strat planning session, came up with a new strategic plan. We did the Swan River Online Forum, which was held over the month of October. We have worked with the WPAC collectives on provincial initiatives and projects. We monitored 14 tributary sites 10 times between April and October. With industry support, it allowed the addition of metal perimeters at sites on 3 of the rivers. So we were able to install those. We implemented year 1 of monitoring at 2 sites on the Lesser Slave Lake. We increased our social media following and engagement. We held a Watershed 101 webinar this year. We had 3 newsletters published. We held a modified Kids Can Catch. And we had the establishment of the Elliott Roche Memorial Student Bursary. We also distributed stewardship handbooks across the watershed throughout the spring and summer to the campgrounds and anybody who requested them.
Questions, comments? I see none. We'll jump into Chamber of Commerce. So there's a meeting on the 28th. They talked about their customer service project that they're working in conjunction with Community Futures, Alberta Works, on our economic development, as well as Chamber of Commerce, basically putting together like a pilot on doing customer service training within the community. So still in some of the early stages of that, but just want to let them know that was something we're doing. Part of their strategic plan and ongoing is they want to create an advocacy committee and looking for volunteers for that, but didn't really hone in on exactly what they would be advocating for or who. And I think they have asked for members. I don't think anybody put up their hand, so we'll see what happens with that one. There was a discussion around the fact that they are changing the Chamber of Commerce to a Board of Trade. Just from an internal perspective in federal legislation, it's more advantageous to them. So there was a process that they're looking at potentially for doing that. A lot of discussion around the all-in event and block party, that they're excited for it. The excitement around the room was around the fact that, it's starting to feel like normal and things are opening up and it's great for Slave Lake. I highlighted that at the meeting, and I highlighted again that I think it's fantastic. They were hoping to do a summer sidewalk sale and start to kind of promote some, businesses open and things are happening. At the meeting, they talked about doing that around the July 10th, but I think they had a lot on the go and I don't think that's happened yet. A little bit on the Business Excellence Awards, that they're doing it in October again, still going through some of the planning stages for that. Town did an update. MD did not do an update. And then there was a presentation by Truly Creative Marketing on, some digital stuff and how they support your business, digital marketing and so on and so forth. Any questions, comments, concerns? Housing.
So doing a few internal changes to the staffing for the housing office in between the lodge and their little ATCO trailer behind the alley there. That will no longer be used, and they put one of the girls into the lodge. She does the accounts payable, and then the other two girls that do deal with the tenants are going to be in an apartment on the 5th Avenue on the row housing. They turned one of the units into an actual office, and it's fantastic. I just toured it the other day. It looks like $1 million, and they can keep an eye on things in the area. And yeah, I think it's really going to be good, because that was one of the things that we wanted to put into when we built the building in that location. So I was glad to see that happened earlier. Gwen is now the lodge manager full-time. Susie is completely gone.
Retired?
Yeah, retired. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
And she's settling in nicely. We filled about 5 lodge rooms now that the restrictions have lifted, and waiting for a couple more seniors to sell their homes to get a couple more in. So I think we had about 12 or 14 vacancies now, and so we still have a few left, but not as many. But the apartments are full.
Okay.
And nothing new on the building project as of late. It's been pretty quiet, both from the private sector and the government. So Lindsay and I were just talking, and we're going to send another letter and say, hey, what's going on? How come we haven't heard anything? Because there was supposed to be an agreement that was supposed to be signed with housing, GOA, and this private sector. And I don't believe that actually happened. So I don't know if they asked for an extension. We didn't hear. Then we just don't meet until September. We're off for the summer. So.
Okay, questions? I see none. Tri-Council Health.
Okay. Wait, I got lots of notes and I can't remember. Okay, here we go. So clinic volumes are high right now. The post-COVID stats and info. So rehab from post-COVID patients is taking up some time. Right now, to get a doctor, your wait time is 12 days. Walk-ins are during the day only right now. And we have only 2 nurse practitioners, so we still have a full complement of 9 doctors. Lots though will be away on holidays as it's summer. Some are sick. Some have had to take some leaves for training. Some have had to take a leave for family things. And we also are down to 2 nurse practitioners. So we have 2 on a leave that we can't fill, and filling nurse practitioner spots has been hard in the last year or 2, and it continues to be a challenge. We don't have any locums right now, so that's good for us. We're still doing fine. So challenging in the hospital, again, is with nursing staff. So We have some nurses on vacation. We have, some that get sick and have a family life. We have some that have their own things going on right now. So we'll be down a couple more since last Thursday for their own personal reasons. So be patient at the hospital. Be patient with the nurses and be patient with the staff there. They have some of their own personal things going on, and they still continue to show up every day. The air conditioner and their chiller, there was some complaints from residents about noise. Keith handled that, as that chiller is just temporarily, and then it's going to head back onto the roof here, should be there by the end of July. The ER have increased, the numbers have increased. So, it's a 40-50% increased volume. We know that. We live in the country where everyone comes to boat and quad and fish and take all those outside activities. And with that comes broken bones and different things that happen. So again, be patient. They're doing the best they can. Staff is stressed. Staff is tired. And we're only going to see more tired staff here in the next 6-8 weeks with vacation, sick time, and personal leaves. The call bell system, they're working on the training. They've got that in. And there will be the fire extinguishers and fire stuff is just about ready to go. So next couple months, that should be all updated there as well. And there was 8 babies born. And I think that's it for me. Go ahead, Sean.
Is that nurse practitioner job hard to fill for Slave Lake, or is that like a province-wide thing?
So no, it's a province-wide thing. It's not a Slave Lake thing. It's a province-wide thing, and it comes down to actually, I think it comes down to like RNs make more money than nurse practitioners, and nurse practitioners have to go back to school for more years. And so some of them would just as soon take an RN job, get their overtime, do all of that stuff. So, and we also have 2 on leave that we can't fill those positions because they're on they've taken a leave or whatever. So we can't fill them. But yeah, no, the whole province is struggling hiring nurse practitioners. And by the looks of it, are we going to talk about your minutes, your Northern Alberta minutes? Because by the looks of it, there's a little bit more like we're kind of in rural Alberta period.
Talk about it now, because at the Northern Alberta elected leaders meeting, I wasn't able to make it. Neither was Councillor King.
Okay. So I was just looking over that. So by the looks of, I wasn't just looking over it, but I was looking over it. And by the looks of it, the province of Alberta, especially in rural, is struggling retaining and recruiting doctors and nurse practitioners. It's a very
common thing for the last 50 years.
Like hugely. And it's not getting any better with having a global pandemic, with the way the current government treats healthcare and those kind of things. So we're kind of in a bit of a dilemma. We are okay right now, but we cannot afford to burn out our own staff. So we do have the what's it called there?
The rural.
No, not RPAP. The other one. The other one I got kicked off.
The health advisory.
Yeah, the Health Advisor Council. So as that job in the region, it was like to help support all the communities that fall under that region and help them retain and recruit like doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses, like all of those things to their facilities. So I'm not sure what they're doing. I haven't heard of a meeting. I haven't seen anything. I haven't talked to anybody. Maybe someone will listen and this will spark their interest. But RPAP works with us and they have they're working on a community bulletin that we will give to you guys as soon as it's done, even for tourism and that. We're just waiting to get all the last little bulletin points put on there, like, the schools, the churches, all of the things we have in the community. And so we'll pass it on to you guys to see if you have any more, but tourism could use that, to promote. Darcy from the MD asked even, if you can use that kind of information to promote, to hire for municipal staff, period, right? All the things that we do have to offer. Sometimes if you get a little 2-pager, it's easy. So, when I was part of that advisory council, council, I mean, that was a big role, was to work on making sure that our other places, like, because it covers from Wabasca to High Prairie, that everybody has staff. And so those two communities are struggling to get staff right now. And I was reading the update from High Prairie and from Big Lakes County. Like, yeah, I mean, everybody is struggling around us. So in our defense, though, we can't burn our own staff out by sending them and sharing them. And yes, it's all nice to do, and it's wonderful to be able to do it, but we have to make sure that we don't burn our own out. So is there a way that we can help those two other places retain and recruit doctors? So, we're going to work with our PAP. Anita is out of Westlock and is fantastic to work with. She's got some great literature, some great stuff coming. So, we want to send it and be able to help them recruit for their own people. So, I mean, I've offered a few times, like, do they do tours, ask some of these questions, but it's hard to get a straight answer and what's going on. So if there is room and, there's a need to sell some doctors and help recruit and retain them for our region, please reach out. Like, we've done good things here. We have some stuff. RPAP has some great stuff. Like, we're willing to help, or I am willing to help make sure that this region is covered with doctors and nurses without burning any hospital out and any staff out. So, as I go through this, Northern Alberta's elected, I see quite a few places are in the same boat as us. So,
well, there's a lot of places that are a lot worse off than us.
Oh yeah, like that's what I mean. So I don't want to get there. We've worked really hard in the last 10 years since the fire. And then you did health and then handed it over to me. And like, we've done a good job as a group to get these doctors here, like try to retain them, keep them. So
there's two things there. Like, number one is, you have to check in. So I will tell you, health is not our realm to play in. It's provincial responsibility. But if we want physicians for our families and our community, like, you got to showcase our community, right? And so I think that we did a really good job of that after the fire, and it's carried on, and we continue to do that.
Yeah.
I did a lot of stuff too, and I noticed that they still use some of the in their recruitment. We had these other assets. We had these videos and things that we created over the time, or tourism brochures and things like that, that I share those with Alberta Health Services, say, hey, when you're trying to recruit someone, share this information. Because I do think that one of the greatest thing about Slave Lake is the quality of life that you can get along with the job that you can get in a lot of different places. And so as the issue compounds out there in rural, it's going to be, it's harder and harder to stand out because they have multitudes of options of where to go. The other thing I will say to that, and people can say whatever they want about the family care clinic style that we have here, but it comes down to the fact that, I think the stat a number of years ago here was 90% of the physicians that came to rural Alberta, Northern Alberta, came from out of the country. And so you've basically got people that come from another country, they come from another continent, across the world, that are uprooting everything they have to come here. They don't even have credit. Getting a cell phone or getting a vehicle becomes a big deal. They got to figure out where to live and where they go. And so I think one of the things that honestly helped us was the fact that they became as employees to our model and not as contractors. It's enough to say, I got to come a job, but now I also got to become a business person. And that's not what I'm used to. And I think that worked advantageously to us. And the problem is right now that the climate doesn't, incentivize there's these discussions going on with physicians about their model going forward. So if I'm a physician from outside of the country here, my number one thought isn't, hey, let's come to Alberta, because I don't even know what the future looks like. And if you're a nurse right now, you're questioning getting into that job too. So, I hope that the province makes it a priority to work through these things quickly, because any person anywhere wants to know what the future looks like. And right now that seems uncertain, and that's it's difficult to be doing that in a time when you have these massive vacancies throughout multitudes of areas.
And also the level of, by the time they post a job, take the job posting down, go through the applications, get that. I mean, geez, it's it's like 6-8 weeks process, like to put the job out. And then by the time you see the nurse shoes on the ground, it could be 6 to 8 weeks. It's hard, right? And so it's about being patient and just like being patient with our staff at the hospital, being patient with the doctors, remembering that they are also human. They took a hit going through a global pandemic. It was health that, had to lead the way and not lead the way and do this and do that. That was different for them. So I think patience and just a little extra kindness could go a long way. If you have to wait a little longer at the hospital, if something isn't as quick, it's not an excuse for not having quality care at all, but it's just about being patient. We are a small community. These people live, eat, breathe, sleep, and raise their children with us. And if we just have a little bit of grace and a little bit of patience here, I think if we can get through this summer and work with the province and get through a couple more things, I think we'll be okay. So, and my other question then was on this Northern Alberta elected leaders, let's do this right now. How come it says Pat Wren, MLA for Lesser Slave Lake? Correct me if I'm wrong, if this guy didn't go to an independent, or he's still our MLA for?
Still our MLA.
Oh, so he still carries his title. He just doesn't have any pull. He just sits on the other side of the room.
He has no party.
He has no party. He's just still our MLA, but just
Our MLA.
dodges
That
around.
hasn't changed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Brandel.
Somebody approached me about, is it still take a couple of weeks to get an appointment at the clinic? Yeah. So during COVID, they were doing a fantastic service where they would call people for prescription renewals or test results instead of having them come in for an actual appointment. Are they still doing that now that the restrictions are done?
Oh yeah, virtual appointments are still huge. They don't ever see virtual appointments going away. It was a great success for that. So things like that, like exactly that, getting your prescription, getting your test results, even something, no, they are not going away from that.
That's good.
That is very good.
Yeah, that was one really good thing about COVID.
And they agree, and yes, they agree, and it's worked well.
They'll
Yep.
do it that way. You have to just ask for it.
You just ask for a phone consultation instead of an in-person, and yep.
Okay, good deal.
Okay, other questions, comments? None. Tourism.
So at our last meeting, we had James Lepan from Travel Alberta, and this fella is an amazing information and resource.
Oh my God, you know what? We forgot our own agenda. But you can bring it up now, because it was supposed to be, we were supposed to do it.
I thought it was after. Oh, it is too, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll bring it up now then.
Great time though.
So he had tips and tricks for tourism and the town for everything from marketing to grant applications and to red tape reduction. So that item on the agenda was that his department has a red tape reduction department. And we were talking about our beach and how we're always advocating for cleaning it up and it's constant advocating, and we want to groom more, and the letters that we have been sending, he wants us to copy those letters to his department because his department works with the red tape reduction department, and he figures it's one more avenue that we can advocate for, or two. And then they're all hearing this, the same departments are hearing the same message from us. So I would like to make a motion that we send that department a letter, the same letters that we have been sending already. Everything that we've already sent in the last year, I would think, just send them all to him.
Okay.
If that's okay with council.
So Councillor Brandel says to make a motion to send our previous letters that we've sent to the Ministry of Environment and Parks to Travel Alberta.
And if there's anything new that we want to add.
Well, so we have a meeting coming up with the minister on the
Yeah.
26th or something like that.
We mentioned that to James as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to send it after that one with the current stuff that's there, but
Sure.
yeah, I still think the motion's good.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. I will make a point too, I think we need to do a better job too, after we meet with our ministers, to send a letter shortly after, say, recap, this is what came out of our discussion and so on and so forth, to capture a little bit better.
I
I thought we usually do anyway, yeah.
We send a letter saying that these are our concerns.
But after we leave, I thought we did that too.
We've never sent a follow-up letter.
Really?
No.
Hmm.
I think it's just a great way to capture what happens at those meetings as well as make sure that we're on the same page there as we move forward. So just an administrative note, Joanna, for our future stuff that we should make a point to do that. It also gives them something too, when they're having multitudes of meetings, to be like, oh yeah, okay, this is what we said, this is what we committed to, this is what we're gonna do. Sorry, anything else in tourism?
Yeah.
Few
So anyway,
things, eh?
this James guy was a really, really good resource to have. And he wants to start coming to our tourism meetings on a regular basis. And he wants to come and meet with a lot of the tourism operators in town that are already working.
Fantastic.
And help them with their business and marketing and whatever they need. So he'd actually asked Leah to set up a meeting with him for our next meeting, and he's going to meet with a bunch every time he's in town. So.
And to further that, I'd make a motion, or maybe it's not even a motion. He'd like to be invited to our next tri-council meeting so he could explain tourism and economic development to our partners and try to get the whole buy-in. So
Yes.
I don't need a motion for that. Just invite him.
And he's a very excitable guy and very, very energetic, and he really gets you excited. By the time we left that meeting, we were all just hopping.
Okay.
I'm sorry, where did you say he's out of?
Travel Alberta.
Edmonton?
Like,
Oh, Edmonton.
He's in
yeah.
Edmonton.
Okay.
He's the
Yeah.
northern rep from Edmonton. He's originally out of Grand Prairie, but he moved there because it's more central to northern Alberta, but it's not really.
Okay, so I think it's important that we put it in motion to capture that we're actually gonna do it, because sometimes then we all forget what we're talking about here.
The
So
plan.
make a motion to invite
James Lepan from Travel Alberta.
to the next tri-council meeting. Moved by Councillor Gramlich. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Other stuff?
Yeah, just the all in event, of course, working madly on all of the events, had to change the order of the events, and marketing is still coming out. We're still working on finalizing some stuff on the concert. But really nice to see that there's so many more pop-up events coming in from other community groups, and it's the buzz on the street and everybody's really excited about it. So, yeah. And again, we're going to be doing another call out for volunteers. Leah and Jordan have been working on that. So that's going out next week already. So yeah, lots happening.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, library.
Okay. So we have a field student here, working right now. She comes from the State Library program, and so she is here for 3 weeks with us. So it was nice to meet her. She's going to work in some of the programming stuff, which is fantastic. So remember I told you to watch for something exciting. So we bought a bookmobile bike, and it will be going. And so it opens up. It has like a whole big shelf and stuff in the back. And she will be going to the parks in the summer right now. And then her plan is to like go to the senior center, bring some books, go to, little play schools, meet for moms groups, ride her book over there or bike over there. So the bike will be, able to use from May to October. And yeah, super exciting. And the girl that's going to use the bike is like super pumped. She's got enough plans to last that bike, I think, for 5 years already written up and ready to go. So watch for that. You'll see it. It's a white bike, and then it has the Rotary, big Public Rotary Library logo and everything on it. So it should be here. Well, we're hoping like by mid-August at the very latest that it comes, but because they were waiting for like approval from the board and that to get it. But, even then we could still use it until October. So get it out for some of that. So, yeah.
Question on that. So then the idea is that like I'm set up in the park and I can use a book while she's there, or?
Yeah, and you can like, it's even available like where you'd be able to like check out a book and check back in a book like right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can take it.
Yeah, like she can fill it up. So she went like over to the senior center and rode her bike or whatever. Yeah, she could fill it up with all kinds of books, and then they could exchange them and get a new book right there, go to the park. She can bring like all her programming, read a story, then do the craft, everything, and it'll all be compact. And She'll be riding her bike. So we were quite excited about that. We're gonna get some new drawers. Shelving is so expensive. Like, shelving for the library is just like, it's crazy. For one drawer that will go into the shelves that are already there, because those shelves are thousands of dollars. One drawer to put in to do some stuff is $400 just for the drawers. So we, that was.
Cabinets, bro.
I know, right? Like it was a tough, for some people on the library board. They were just like, wow, like that's a lot of money. But as you understand, it is, that's what happened. So we're looking at, that to be coming. And then the other thing, we are the first in the Peace Library system. If you go on to the library's website, that got a big banner that says Indigenous Resources. And so we are the first library in all of the Peace system to do that. So it's fantastic. Like our library manager and people that work there they're just always on top of their job. So they got some recognition, and now they have a bunch of other libraries, like even big libraries, reaching out to them to see what kind of Indigenous resources we have, what all of that kind of stuff, and are sort of modeling and going to use this Slave Lake Library as an example to help build on their website. So hats off to them for doing that. And we're looking at getting a shed. So I know Kendra had worked with whoever she needs to work with at the town, but we need a shed now to store a few things and some extra stuff and that. So that's kind of our next purchase, bigger plan.
Sheds aren't cheap right now either.
No, this is also we discussed it. A few of the library board members' eyes were really big again, but so we don't meet in August, and then we'll meet back again in September. But the library is operating 10 to 4, Monday to Friday. They've had no really issues. They're still doing the program along with myself that are signed up for homelessness in the library, and then we also got some best practices for Alberta public libraries serving Indigenous communities. So lots and lots of resources. And so, it's exciting. We're moving in the right direction. And again, the library is doing a wonderful job. So hats off to them.
Questions, Councillor Brandel?
So went for a walk the other day, and in the Splash Park, Hospital Park, there's these little banners all around the park. Is that you guys?
So that was the library. Yeah, they set it up. It was going to be their story walk.
Yeah.
Someone removed all of them. Yes, so they have now moved it over here closer to the library, and they will bring everything in every night and then reset it up every day. But the plan was to have it at the CJ Sugar Park where you did your stop, and they were, but it didn't work out for the best of their ability. So they traded, and they're back here. And they'll still have the story walk. So,
It looked very cute. It was a really cute idea. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? None. Okay.
Is that like a stretch?
Oh, no, I thought Julie's mic was still on or off, and my neck's kind of bugging me. And we started our meetings at 5 tonight, and like this feels like a marathon actually. And we're not done yet. Naming advisory.
We met for the first time in many, sorry, Bryce.
Sorry.
What? Go ahead.
You guys don't meet very often, sorry.
Yeah, we met for the first time in many, many months. You're right. We don't meet very often. And we added one name to our naming reserve of politicians and pioneers. It's a long, lengthy list. And we added a name to it. We don't need to know the name. And we'll be coming as a delegation at a future meeting to make a request for something we'd like named in Slave Lake after one of the people off our naming list. Very vague, eh?
10 questions, but I don't feel like any of them are going to be answered.
So much more informed.
You're welcome.
Let's just jump into community futures.
Okay, we also had our AGM last month. The regional relief and recovery loan deadline is now passed. Funds have been handed out. Love local, shop local. That program will be launching soon. We're looking for some more partners or organizations to help us promote local shopping in our region. The customer service project. So Community Futures is partnering with organizations to start a customer service training program. We're looking for pilot businesses to run the program as well as partners and contractors to assist in the development of the program. We had a partners meeting in June and discovered a pre-made program that we could utilize for the training. We're currently still developing the rest of the program, but hope to have a pilot running for late this fall. And we're working with on partnerships with Business Link to provide more support materials and services for Community Futures clients. We had Lemonade Days run in Slave Lake, and it was a great success. Coming out of that is going to be a mini entrepreneurs market at the All In event. Councillor McGregor might know more about that, or just on how Lemonade Days went, because you did that. Very briefly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Lemonade Day was a huge success. I don't know who was more excited, me or the kids, because I finally got to work after 18 months. So I had 14 people registered, 10 for the day and 9 ended up showing up. I dressed up with the Lemonade Day head, drove around to all the stands. Kids did a fantastic job. There's some new people to the community, so like a great way for them to meet people. There was people that spent their day and that's what they did. They just went around to the Lemonade Day stands. Like, that's how excited people are when you lock them up for a long time in a small community. And then you're like, okay, you can go out and get some lemonade. Well, holy smokes. I had made lots of messages about how wonderful it was. So it was really, really good. I'm excited for next year. We're already planning for the whole big Community Futures that hold the license. We're ready to go for next year. So, and it's a really good, little kids are they're the future of our community. And man, they have some wicked ideas that they come up with to be little entrepreneurs. I had returning judges. Then I had a family that did it before. And then I had Ali and his 2 sons that were also judges. So Ali's sons judged a lot different than him. They were a lot harder. And he was kind of worried about that. He brought back all his papers. They each have a file folder to give me. And he's like, my kids, they're really hard judges. I said, it's okay. So yeah, no, it was super exciting. Lots of money given back to different places in the community, because the whole bit of that is save, spend, and share. So you donate back, you pick a nonprofit to donate back to, then you save some money for something for the future, and then you have a goal of what you'd like to buy with that. But along with that, you learn about expenses, profits. You get an investor. Do you get a loan? Do you have to pay back your people that gave you the money for the sugar and the lemon? So yeah, it was really great. And then off of that came, for this All In now, they'd like to have a little entrepreneur market in the Royal Bank parking lot where other young entrepreneurs can come out, and you don't have to sell lemonade. You can sell crafts and bracelets and painted rocks and art,
your services,
lemonade services that you do. So yeah, looking forward to giving them a hand with that. So
I think that is amazing. And then some. I was heading out of town quadding that day, but as Janice was grabbing the subway there for lunch, I went over and hit the lemonade stand in front of Shoppers Drug Mart. There was 2 little young girls there, and I will just tell you, that lemonade, they could bottle that and sell that. It was great stuff.
yeah, they did. Yeah, it was really good.
Amazing job.
Sorry, go ahead.
The big question for me at the time, we're so off topic, but was there on the iced tea, because the mom was from the States.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this iced tea or iced tea? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I didn't try the iced tea because I realized you couldn't risk it. Yeah, I wasn't. But the lemonade, it was amazing. I just think it's so great. We're trying to grow economic development and do whatever. There's nothing more exciting than young entrepreneurs that grow, try stuff, take risks, create jobs, create economy. I think it's amazing.
Well, it'll be nice next year to work with the school, because I mean, yeah, like there's even the opportunity for the higher kids in like industrial arts to build stands, like, and like, yeah, and make a stand of their own or build stands for some other entrepreneurs and work or little like younger siblings. And yeah, it's a great program. So it can only grow.
Okay, Councillor King.
That was my next point, was the program coordinator is actively getting ready to go back into the schools. So fingers crossed that happens. Community Futures has partnered with the town of Slave Lake, the Chamber, and Alberta Labor and Immigration to identify economic development opportunities, collaboration, and service supports for our region. So they reached out to the MD of Lesser Slave River and the Sawridge Band to join these efforts. And this working group consists only of employees for the organization. So no council members, no board members. It's from administration employee level. And we're also looking to set up our office hours back up in High Prairie and Wabasca, so we're more accessible to the clients and we create a better presence. So we're looking to ramp up programming in those outlying communities as well, and we're looking for partnerships to help us do that. So if anyone knows of anyone or wants to put somebody in touch with us, that would be great. That's about it.
Any other questions? CEC.
We do not meet until September.
Homeless Coalition.
Okay, so there was a meeting June. My mic on. There was a meeting June 24th. They're currently working with RDN to coordinate housing needs estimation project. So we're currently conducting sessions on how to collect this information. The information is vital because it'll help us apply for various forms of funding and grants. We developed a vision statement, values, as well as some goals. And we're also looking for an organization to house and administer the current funding for the MAP program. And we invite those who are interested to attend our next meeting on July 29th at 1:15.
Okay, questions, comments? MPC.
We have not met. Our next meeting is July 19th.
Okay, SDAB have not met. Waste. Have not met.
Okay, so we had a meeting June 17th. There's still some current staffing shortages. We're working on recruiting 3 positions. We reviewed our fee schedule and we will be reviewing this further at our next meeting to see if any adjustments should be made. Tonnage is looking a little better. It's good for the landfill since we are a volume-based business. This likely means less waste is going to other facilities and more of it is coming back here. We did a preliminary review on the 2021 budget. We'll likely be finalizing at our meeting this coming Thursday. We conducted some fence repair to help keep wildlife and unauthorized personnel out. Repaired litter fencing, helps obviously keep litter from blowing out of the landfill. And that is it.
Yeah, so I'll just add there's some stuff there for council that we should be aware of. There's discussion about changing the fees out there, and then that led to a discussion about what are we changing them for. And because our revenues have been like this over the last number of years because of tonnages and what's happening, there's some big philosophical things about what we do with cover and cover coming from some of the mills who provide us with stuff. What we do with a cell when it's due, because that'll be coming up at some point. And so before we talked about changing the fees, it was more about, okay, like what's the overarching big picture plan here? And so Thursday will be a heavy discussion towards that piece about, there's been some continuity that some of the stuff, because there's been such changes in the MD staff, that some of the philosophies that were there before aren't even translated into what we're doing. So we need to kind of regroup and get on the same page. So just wanted to throw that out there, that it'll be a big, deep discussion there and see where things end up. Any questions? Airport.
We have not met. However, the fencing project is now fully complete. So the airport is now fully secured. All the power gates are fully operational. The general comments from users are that they are happy with the fence and gate operating system. And there will be an upcoming tour in about a week's time. So if any members of council are interested in joining, reach out and you can conduct that tour with Pierre.
Okay. Can you just get it to send to Joanna, and then Joanna can send her out? Please. Any questions on airport? Legacy, we have not met. We were waiting for some correspondence back from Daycare Society on a date that we would get together and have some stuff. So Joanna, we should reach out to them because I want to say that their meeting was on the 7th. And so we haven't set a meeting, but if you can peek into that box. Protective services.
So we don't have a date yet, so I will reach out to, so that there is one more date before this council ends.
Okay, Northern Alberta Mayors and Reeves Caucus hasn't met. Alberta elected leaders was in June. The minutes are attached, but Slave Lake was not present. The one we're missing, we always skip over this, Joanna, and I want to have a discussion about some of this because this is important. We always skip over Tri-Council as a minutes, right? Because we're all there. But part of the reason that we have these discussions is that so we can debrief some of the things that happened, as well as this is out, part of these committee updates is outward communication to the public, know what's going on. So we did have a Tri-Council meeting. Two of our council weren't there. And we haven't had a discussion about any of this since then, but I will not say it was not our most successful meeting. And I almost felt like we were going backwards. So, I think we had some good meetings at the beginning of the year where we talked about strategically about the benefit of Tri-Council. And the benefit of Tri-Council has always been the relationship and the advocacy that comes from working together. And so we started out with an overarching plan of saying, we really need to leverage that to the best of its ability. And personally, as a operations guy here or whatever else, I'm really interested in projects that get something done that have substantial, long-lasting impact to the region. And, as much as I love advocating for highways, I'm advocating for another department that I'm not in charge of just to do their regular maintenance. In a lot of ways, I don't want to undervalue it, and then we'll continue to do it. But it's like advocating for someone to get a haircut. It's something that has to happen anyway. What am I strategically making a difference in when I do it? And so the push has been to let's think bigger. Let's think longer. Let's think strategically. And Mitsu Industrial Park, as an example, was something that strategically happened at some point because someone made a decision and they made things happen. And I think there's ability for us to get there as well. And so in true fashion, we decided to handle some of that internally, and we tasked people that are already at capacity to come up with something there. And we end up guided back into the tourism hole. And I think tourism is fantastic. And I think it has huge potential. I think we always end up there because I think it's easy, low hanging fruit. But I feel like we just automatically dropped off of some of these other options that were there. But at the end of it, it was also evident that we're not all on the same page about what we want to do and how we're going forward. And then you see some of the stuff in this discussion here with our neighbors and the minutes and newspapers, and basically talk about, is that something I want to play in or not? So one of the things, before I make a whole bunch of comments, the feeling at the end of the meeting was some of these councils need to go back and have their own discussions and talk about where things are at. We haven't done that, but I'm happy to do some of that publicly now. But I'm curious to know if you did get some feedback from the MD, the Sourage First Nation.
Your worship, the quick answer is no. I haven't heard. Met with the CAO a couple of weeks ago, so there was no discussion about it at all. And then talked to my staff, including the economic development officer, whether there was any feedback from the MD, which was confirmed that there was none yet. So yeah.
Okay. So I guess one of the things, like just having an open, candid conversation here, is that, we're really strongly on this path of economic development, and we're funding a lot of money into economic development. And it's always one that's tough to measure. Are we having success? Are we not having success? I will tell you, I know from both my private business experience and my stuff with mayor or whatever else, talking to these different factions or whatever, Alberta is very patchy right now, in the sense that there are some areas that are doing well and there's some areas that are not. And even in rural, like, this one town is doing quite well, and this town that's right beside it is still struggling and is not seeing that bump back from recovery. And so Slave Lake continues to do well. And I think it comes from a variety of factors. It comes from the variety of that, we're seeing some massive oil and gas development north of town, which is helping us. And a lot of it's moving west, which is a little bit more above us, so we see less going out of the region. Forestry has been gangbusters all the way through, having 4 different mills that, hugely advantageous to us. College obviously is here. We just have some diversity in our economy, I think, that helps us. And right now, consumer spending is some of the highest it's ever been. So, you're seeing the whole retail sector and everybody's busy and things are happening. I still believe that we're on the right path, but internally I do struggle with the fact that any tangible benefit that we are going to actually make has to benefit the region, because it can't just benefit Slave Lake. If it does, it doesn't even make sense. The large potential growth is going to come from things in the region. If we do anything industrial, it's not going to be in Slave Lake, it's going to be outside. If we're doing tourism, the beach, the campgrounds, the majority of them are all in the MD. The lake, the trails, whatever we're doing there, anything of any substantial size is not going to go right in directly in town. And so I am frustrated by the comments that I read in the newspaper, and I take those with a grain of salt, and I'm not saying anything, but the fact that there's this, insinuation that only the town of Slave Lake benefits from anything that we do in economic development, I think is ludicrous. That for a large part, if you just look at oil and gas, or you look at forestry, theoretically, the MD receives 100% of the benefit from that. We get some spinoff of some people living in town. We get some spinoff of some jobs, but they're actually literally their bank account gets bigger because of these things growing in there. And ours theoretically doesn't. In fact, we have to incur a lot of the services or build churches or build schools or build hospitals that we actually don't even get tax money for. So, I just think that when our neighbor does well, we do well, and we do well, our neighbor does well. And I think we should be working together, but I do struggle, and I respect that they have their own philosophy that is different than ours. But I will say I'm struggling internally that should it be just do we keep spending a bunch of money to, because what I think we need is, we really want to get on a grander scale. We want to bring in like a outside contractor, really get some vision, get them some things happening. Do we pay for that 100% because our neighbors don't want to, and are not interested? But if they don't, do we just do nothing, or how does that work? And I don't really know the answer. I'm really struggling with that one to figure out where we go and what we do, because I still think that there's potential. I think things are busy, and this is the time to leverage some of that. I think the relationship is good with our neighbors, and, there's potential here that we're expanding that relationship without our neighbors, that, I want to capitalize on some of those potential things that exist, but we really have to figure out then, do we just fund and create a plan with someone else who's on a different philosophy with us, or do we just bring them ideas and say, hey, yeah, is this something you're interested or you're not interested in? And we do all the work behind the scenes. I don't really know what the answer is, but I am struggling with that. And I think we always get tied into the MD, and with respect to the Saurage First Nation, they're also a big part of our partners. A lot of our things are advocacy and talking to the province, and they can access grant and funding that we don't have access to. And sometimes I think, in fairness to them, the MD's out, so we're not going to do anything, but maybe it's the town of Saurage need to work a little more closely together, and we go our own path or whatever. And those are the things that are just going through my head at the end of the meeting. I don't have any answers, and I've talked too long, but I'll leave it open to the rest of the council. But, I am struggling there a little bit in my head. Councillor McGregor.
This report that we got sent, this tri-council ranking tourism tactics, is that what was discussed then at that meeting? It was a heat wave, so I was out. So our number, so is the number one thing for tourism tactics signage, public beaches? That's what we come up with?
Well, yeah. So, that was the frustration at the end of it. I said, realistically, we're talking about these big, huge things. That was my exact comment in the meeting. We're talking about these big, huge things. We had these different charts here that are all geared towards tourism. A lot of them, a couple of these things flew off to as the main priority. As example, the signage was a big one because the MD felt we needed more wayfinding signage in town. At the same time, there was a talk about the public beach access and Big Fish Bay. So that comes up and it's on everybody's mind. And we start talking about the beach and some more better signage there or whatever. And all of a sudden, of course, signage becomes the main priority after that meeting. And I'm thinking, I'm setting out to, our goal is to do something big and lasting you leverage our unique opportunity here. And at the end of it, we brought 17 elected officials together in 3 different, entities, and we came up with, let's work on signage. Like, no offense, my thoughts are bigger than that.
Okay. Okay, that's good, because I needed to, like, I've read this over and I've clarified it, and so I didn't know, like, and because I missed the meeting, I hate to be that person, but like, out of the top 5 things, we have signage for public beaches, networking admin staff to peers, signage at the Vic, signage at the boat launch, and number 5 is a host a summer event.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about tourism and economic development, well, and this is tourism tactics. So, I mean, as a taxpayer, for the first 5 things, and we want to spend money on signage.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of big signs that say Devonshire Beach. There's one that's like, I don't know, it's like massive, like that you're entering it, and then you go up and it's crazy. There's a lot, like a visitor information booth. Geez, I don't know if you missed that on the highway. Like, it's like this big. And the boat launch, I mean, yeah, wow, it's another big sign, like that's boat launch. So, I mold these over in my head, and then I talk to some other taxpayers. And like, it's a tough sell. Like, if I had to sell our top 5 things right now, I wouldn't do a very good job at it.
No one left that meeting feeling like that's where our focus is at. We all left that meeting feeling like, holy man, we're not on the same page, and we either need to get on the same page or do whatever. So that's why I started with the question that we heard back, is the ND was very adamant that they needed time to have a discussion about where they were at. And there was definitely some, division in their council about where they wanted to be. And in fairness to them, it's because they hadn't had a deep discussion about it. And so now we can see publicly those discussions are going on behind the scenes. But because of that, at the end of it, we're saying, okay, like, what are we even working on? What are we trying to do here? We're not even in the same canoe, let alone rowing in the same direction here. So they were committed to like getting back to us by the end of June here, so we could kind of make some decisions and move through some things quickly, but haven't heard nothing. So I would encourage David to get on the phone there, reach out and see where things are at. But if we, and in fairness, I haven't talked to any of them, and I should start with a phone call to Murray and say, hey, where are things at? I know what's going through your head, but maybe we're not here to make a decision tonight, but I just want to recap. That's how that meeting was. There's definitely some frustration about where we go from there. I will say, though, it also leads into some frustration internally for myself, David, in regards to our own economic development strategy and what we're doing. So a lot of it is, I think if somebody says the blue box is what we're supposed to be working on, I think everybody in the room would get behind the blue box. And we would all say, yeah, okay, that's what we need to do. And we'd sell this to the MD, and the MD would say, yeah. And the Sarge would be like, yeah, this makes sense. We make some little tweaks and away we go. But we don't even have that. We're working on all these different little threads, which I don't think are bad ideas, but we don't have this overarching formulated plan. And so the pushback has been, we have to get this transportation survey done. We have to get this transportation survey done. We can't do anything until we get the transportation survey done. And so I'm sitting here and the blood's building and my mouth is biting my tongue here, or whatever else. I'm waiting for this transportation survey. I understand it's coming up on the 14th and that's going to happen. I just like, what are the dates? What are the things that happen beyond that? So we can actually get to the point where like, these are the things that are our priorities. This is the framework. This is the plan, and do whatever. Cause with respect, I feel like after a year, we've got some great little things happening. I see momentum happening, but we just don't have that big overarching vision to share with our public, to share with future councils, to share with our own neighbors, to figure out where we're going.
As your worship, great comments. I'll reach out to MD and see what their direction is. With regard to our approach that has been so far, actually the framework has been the 5 pillars that we talked about: the strategic industry development, so oil and gas and hydrogens and geothermal industries, and working with the oil and gas service industries, etc., things like that. Other pillar is the reconnaissance and evidence-based data establishment, so transportation surveys, trying to figure out where the supply chain is, the value chain is, where the origin and destination of the goods and services are, and it's continuing to happen. The other one is the government relationship. So working with the regional partnership, working with Tri-Council for sure. The province of Alberta Council has been very active in dealing with those people. And, eventually through the economic action plan, there will be some very clear directions and the ownership of the processes, whether it's a mayor, whether it's a CAO or the council as a whole, to tackle a specific tasks, a direct matching and connection. So there was lots of those efforts to reach out to the existing businesses here, reaching out to the Edmonton, the Calgary businesses, and et cetera. So overall, we've been following those directions and the principle, the framework of 5 pillars that will give us the short term as well as the long term. I absolutely agree with you that while we do the connection, matching, and et cetera, things like that, which focus on the tourism, which focus on the relatively short term, I absolutely agree that we need to focus on the long term industries, sustainabilities, et cetera, because short term gives us the cash flow, short term earning, but we are facing a big wall, which is, the fundamentals of the petroleum industry. So we really need to focus on the long term. And that's what internally we've been doing a lot of work there.
So when does that happen? Because my understanding is it's always been waiting on the transportation.
Yeah.
survey.
So I guess the framework has been rigorously followed. With some of the reconnaissance, such as the surveys and whatnot, we plan to have a economic action plan wrapped up.
So you plan to have an economic action plan wrapped up?
Yeah, by a certain time frame. And
what does that potential time frame look like?
So now we have the business survey done.
Yeah.
We have the transportation survey that'll be done tomorrow, and then we have the tourism. Some of the survey done. Our contractor Inside has done some work. Another contractor has done some other work too. So we're gonna put all things together and come up with an economic action plan, which I see it by the end of like fall or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that has been always the plan, and it has been followed.
Before this election or after this election?
Which one do you want?
I'd love to have before. Like, I'd love to have some insight into what we've been doing.
Sooner the better.
We can make it happen before.
Good, perfect. Let's make it happen. Okay. Talk quick. Okay, motion to accept sorry, is there anything else you guys want to talk about on that stuff? Motion to accept the committee updates as presented, verbal updates. Thank you, Councillor King. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor. Management task list.
I'll be very quick. Just a quick update on the couple of things.
Actually, before we start, because it's gonna be longer than 2 minutes here, we need a motion to go past 10 o'clock. Councillor McGregor makes a motion to go past 10 o'clock. Call the question. Those in favor. You're good. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. It's supposed to be unanimous, I think.
Still,
Okay.
Your worship, I'll be very quick.
Okay.
So a couple of updates. The meeting with the Alberta Environment and Parks has been booked, and it'll be July 25th. So we can have a discussion about the beach and parks and et cetera. The other update is that the meeting occurred between the mayor as well as the Minister McIver regarding the transportation, and on June 30th. And other than that, rest of it is a status quo, and we are just keeping plugging away. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. Councillor King.
Who had a meeting with Mr. McIver?
So
Nobody?
nobody
It's
yet.
nobody yet, because now it's not Mr. McIver, is it?
No, so myself, Murray Carrick, the chief, we had a meeting with Minister McIver on the phone on the 26th, 29th. So it wasn't my mayor's update, but I can do it right now.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Time is good, but basically they committed that the Highway 2 work is still ongoing and will be happening this year. It will be done before the end of the year. We talked about, you have all this work to get done and surveying and dirt work, whatever. There seems to be nothing happening, but they assure us it will get done. We talked about the frustration again with 88 and some of the issues there. They basically said, as much as you think you have the biggest issues in Alberta, there's other places that are worse. I said, well, give us a list of them because I want to go see them.
For real.
And so they committed to getting, there was a couple of questions that they couldn't answer. And so they committed to getting their administration and their staff on site, on here, on the ground, to look at it, to verify that things are where they're at, and they're going to get back to us here shortly. We also talked about frustration with the alignment of the Sarge Truck Stop, Caribou and 88 intersection, and that, this thing just kind of sits there and never ever gets dealt with and nobody does anything with it. So they were going to go back and have another discussion about that. But basically left the meeting not feeling like much is going to happen other than, hey, we're going to go take a serious look at it again and get back to you. So we continue to advocate for 88. He said, we are hearing you loud and clear. He said, your MLA is on my butt all the time. Your residents are on my butt all the time. You guys are on my butt all the time, but I'm telling you, there are worse places. And that's where our focus is at. But in fairness to you, we're going to come out and really take a look at it on our own and kind of go from there. So we'll see where we end up. I definitely didn't leave it feeling like it was a home run, but I do appreciate that Reeve Carrick and Chief Twin were able to jump on the call and make that voice a bit louder again. I think that helps. So I also did ask at our regional partnership meeting of our neighboring municipalities and First Nations there for some support as well in that. And I'll continue to advocate for that as we move forward because I think that there's potential for especially our neighbors to the north to align with us and advocating for some improvements there.
The task list, sorry. Project Capture. That administration work with the RCMP, MD 124 to share this idea and identify funding sources to start the pilot project, Project Capture, a crime reduction initiative. What is that?
It's from when the RCMP came and did a presentation.
With the bouncy girl, the girl was pumped up. Okay.
Yeah, and talked about basically, capturing the fact that there already are cameras out there. So can you register?
Yeah.
Be part of a combined system that when things come up, we know where the cameras are. We know how to contact and how to get a hold of people. And
okay.
Relatively cheap.
Yeah, like it was a couple $1,000 or something.
And we're nowhere on that yet. Could we check on that, David? That Project Capture? I know Gary's on it. He's on holidays or whatever, but just if there's something about that, where we're at with that. Okay.
Your worship to the council, yes, we will. And actually, I talked to the detachment commander about it and kudos them to bring that kind of ideas and offered any support if there's any needs for the support. So it's a very, very, like a low cost, but great idea, actually. Yeah. So
inexpensive, but has huge potential, right?
Yeah.
Other questions, comments on management task lists? Go for it.
I'm getting them all out of my see guys for a month. COVID numbers. Do we need to have the COVID numbers still on the Town of Slave Lake site, or can we stop reporting numbers? And if people want to learn about COVID and numbers, they can go on the big website that's from the province and Alberta Health Services and where else? Can it come off of ours now?
We finally hit 0.
No, we did.
I made an announcement to the most recent one that I won't update until there's a change, because it's redundant to say 000.
But even if there's a change, do we need to have these on our town site now, or is that the responsibility of the community if they want to know to find out? Like COVID's over.
How much work is it, Jordan?
It takes minutes.
Well, I'm not even worried about the work. I'm worried about the fact that are we going to report on this for the next 20 years? Or are we done and going to not report COVID numbers anymore? And if people would like to find that information out, there's available websites and places for people to look.
Yeah, in fairness to your comment, I would say people are always hungry for communication. However, you don't want to do this forever. So part of it would be to, my thought would be, to make an announcement that effective August 1st or something like that, we're migrating out of that unless there's a severe spike, and then we would start putting our things on there again. Also, we get 100 cases, maybe we should probably put that on there as information that's going on. Sound fair? I don't think so. Not for
Yeah,
that.
no, so well noted. And actually, I'm sitting with Dr. Hinshaw tomorrow in a conference. So she gives, and then Assistant Deputy Minister of the Health, she gives us the current state. So we'll know exactly where the Alberta, province of Alberta is as of tomorrow. And then
Because they're even dialing back too, right? Yeah. We're open. We're open. Alberta's open, right?
Yeah.
Okay, motion to set the management task list as information. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Finishing up here. First off, it hasn't been a good couple of weeks for some families and stuff out there. I know Councillor King talked about it last week there, that we've got a missing person that still remains to be found on the lake. Deep condolences to his family and his friends, a person that had a big impact in our community and was really dialed in. And yesterday, another accident, another tragic event there. Condolences going out to their family and friends and those impacted as well. But do want to say that, the other group that we forget to acknowledge is, search and rescue has been really busy. Our first responders that are all part of this and having to be a part of that. And so I will just say, as much as we're all excited for the world to be open, just remember there's a lot of little things going on in the community. There's a lot of little grief. We've talked about the stress on our health professionals. As much as we're all ready to be loud and party and enjoy their things, recognize other people are going through different things. Bill Look's funeral is coming up tomorrow. Another big one. I'll be attending tomorrow there. Guy that had a big impact in our community, big personality, was well recognized, and we're all going through different stuff. So just thoughts and condolences to all those, and Bill's family tomorrow, and some tough days ahead for a few. Meeting with RCMP, or not with RCMP, with AUMA. So there's a thing that's happening behind the scenes, and I don't think council's aware. So the federal government is working with the union that represents RCMP, and working on some contract negotiations. And so AUMA and the provinces have kind of been held out of it. And so, sorry, I don't know if it's the feds or the province. I think it's both. Those two are, but basically municipalities are not included. And there's a potential in there to do retroactive pay up to 5 years. So AUMA is getting quite concerned about the fact that this then gets transferred back to us. We're paying $1.6 million in policing costs every year. And all of a sudden that there could be an impact that we had no discussion in, that all of a sudden we're going to get a bill for 5 years of retroactive pay. And so the position has been, if you guys are lobbying, or if you guys are negotiating that on your behalf and so on and so forth, then you guys fund the bill for it. And so I'm not 100% sure what the potential costs are be, but AUMA is basically scrambled and they're doing an emergency meeting about it tomorrow. So I'll be dialing in on that one. Waste meeting, I already talked about that. It's coming up on Thursday, but we really need to figure out a picture as we move forward. And then the last one I was going to touch on, we kind of already did, meeting with Minister Nixon, coming up on the 26th of this month. This one's one that I don't think we should take lightly either, that we need to have some idea of, I think going in there, the overarching theme is that we want to understand what their own vision is for the park and what they're doing and how we can augment and complement that. But I will, there's talk about what our level is in regards to the beach and grooming and things that happen and what we do and what we don't do. And so it begs a question there, where is our comfort level? Because it's not even in our municipality. Our other neighbors they're not on the same page as we are. But I think it would be advantageous to get on the same page going in, of what we want and what we expect out of that. So I'll start and say that, my overarching thought with that is that, there's very little investment that goes into Lesser Slave Lake Provincial Park, which they call a flagship park up here. We sat with this particular minister who's highlighted the fact that, no extra investment is needed in there. And so there's some little strategic wins I think you could happen, and some bigger ones to say like, well, what is the plan? And so as we push economic development, we want to focus on tourism. We have this tourism society doing things. It would be great if the groups work together in unison so that we ended up on the same page at some point. I think overarching, that's what I want to get out of the meeting, but I'm only one person. And so I think there might be other sharing views that we need to, I want to get that sorted out before we go into that. Councillor Ferguson.
So as noted before, the biggest thing that I really want to understand is the provincial government announced here last year that there's opportunities for partnerships with various stakeholders. And to date, there's been very little information of what that actually looks like. So I want to ask the minister and inquire, what do these partnerships look like and how are they structured? And once we have some of the answers to those questions, and I think we can, formulate, a firm decision afterwards.
Great question. Okay. Other things? The other big one that's also in there and that's already been noted in there for the minister is a discussion around the longevity and ongoing funding of the Bird Observatory Center. So we advocated for that this year, started to make some progress, then COVID kind of shut it down anyway. It's kind of limping along, but theoretically right now on the books, it's supposed to be shut down again for the winter months next year, and there's no funding allocated for that. So it's a deeper discussion that we're supposed to have. So they committed to doing this with us in February, March. It's July now, we're trying to do this. We have to make sure that we're loud about that one at this time, because the next time we get a meeting, it might not even be the same council. Councillor McGregor.
So too, on that bird observatory, the nest there also is not in use right now because it needs a new cistern, and that's about a $400,000 touch. But again, we already have this building. We have this great asset to our community. There has to be upkeep. So we're probably going to need to talk about that. And then we need to champion our own beach as a community and clean it up after ourselves. The beach is a mess. It is not tourists that come in that make it a mess every day of the week. We have local people, our own community, our own region that use the beach, and it's disgusting. They just leave everything. You weren't here at the last meeting and I talked about this. I've watched and looked at pictures of this stuff and it's incredible. So if we want to take pride in our community and in our beach, it has to start at home. It has to start with us. It has to start with our own community, recognizing that. And if the provincial government gave away that park, it wouldn't even be the town. It would go to the MD. So again, I feel like
I think the MD would let us have it.
Yeah, I know, but we don't want it. It's not then we might as well start taking on a few more. So we need to champion our own. We need to take care of our own.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem though. The problem is with a lot of these things, depending on, we've talked about a variety of topics tonight and in our previous meeting that nobody really wants to deal with. And so at some point we have to decide, okay, well, which ones are we going to deal with? Which ones are a priority? To what extent are we going to do them? Because the fact is that after multitudes of years of everyone saying, I don't want to deal with it, we are not accomplishing anything. And we need to, we got to be better than that. We got to be bigger than that. We got to be smarter than that.
Feels like we've just had this meeting 2 years ago.
Oh, Councillor Ferguson.
So further to Councillor McGregor's points, I do think there's some opportunities for some quick wins. We shouldn't have to, but advocating for some signage, please pick up after yourself. Please clean up after yourself. I was out there today. I didn't see any signage to that effect out there. Also, some additional signage that clearly indicates where the groom sections and where the natural sections of the beach are. That's
additional garbage cans, maybe some enforcement once in a while,
maybe walk 10 feet to the garbage can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, realistically, the signs cost a lot of money, and now we need to say, please pick up your garbage. Please clean up after yourself.
Number one item highlighted in a recent meeting.
17 elected officials.
Which is a disgrace to taxpayers, provincially, federally, and locally. I mean, I get it, but I don't need a sign to tell people to pick up after themselves. And I mean, then they can just write a funny face on there and make that sign say something else. And then we'll just clean it up and put another one down there. And, you know, like, so I mean, realistically, we don't need a sign to tell people to clean up after themselves. There's garbage cans and recycling placed strategically across the whole beach, like in spots. You don't have to walk far. There's ones at the top of the stairs. There's ones in the parking lot.
I don't get how you go to the beach looking for a nice spot and you don't go where the garbage is, but then you leave the like, I don't get why you don't pick up after yourself. It's disgusting.
Because people have stopped taking pride in things in this community, in this region, in the world, and we have forgot to parent children and start at home teaching values, morals, and it starts at home and it starts with your own. So before we want to make this place Sylvan Lake, how about we look after it ourselves? How about we clean it up? How about we get some pride? And how about we start raising the bar and the standards a little bit more, instead of leaving it up to the school, the councils, the community to do all of that. It starts at home.
Yeah, and so I will say there that when it comes to parenting, I think there's two sides of the spectrum there, because I think there are some parents that are doing a fantastic job. But I will say the pride is a thing that I think we have a huge issue with. And I think a lot of municipalities struggle with it, but I think Northern Alberta struggles with it more than ever. We're a younger community. I think the fact that we, you know, I always look at the states with envy, and it's the only thing I look at the states with envy for, except for, you know, maybe Disneyland, right? Like, it's pretty cold out there. But the fact is that they have pride. They have this community pride that these, like, you know, their citizens rally around football teams and baseball teams and things that go on and do whatever. And as stupid as it sounds, like, I'm excited for the rural missioner to get a football program going, because it's something that you start to ingrain pride within youth. And so, you know, I would challenge our community services department and our administration, as you know, we're talking about events and we're talking about doing things. How do we build some pride into the things that we are doing? Because that is the difference between success or failure with those things. We want to talk about drugs. We want to talk about cleaning up your community. You want to talk about 10 cities and doing whatever. It becomes, you know, a lot of this stuff comes from the fact that you have pride in your community. You put in the effort. Do you volunteer? Do you clean up? And so, you know, I think that has to be a focus and strategy as we move forward. You know, it's not just parents at home, it's us as just the events and stuff that we plan on, what we do and what we support.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed that it's a part of the big community building. And physically, we are doing the urban design exercise on the Rennie Hall and downtown Main Street. It's gonna go bigger and bigger. We are working on the signage, wayfinding, lane marking, all different design to improve a little more and more. And a great point and great direction and advice that we'll take, and we'll apply that to anything that we do. Absolutely.
Actually, I just want to throw this out here when it comes to ingenuity. One of the smartest things I think our administration ever did was for some Canada 150 celebrations, right? They had like a internal thing that, you know, each department was challenged to, come up with, to bring some, you know, Canadian pride to what they were doing. And the winner got a steak lunch or something like that, or $500 for a pizza party or whatever they did. And the stuff that came out, Canada flags on the fire hydrants and on the sidewalks and, helping with the block party. And I think our staff does a fantastic job, but, I just throw that out there that, if we can incentivize them to think of ways to bring pride to that, to our community groups that come looking to us for, support and funds and money or whatever else, what can we do to build that pride in our community? I think that should be a strong focus as we go forward.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, God, we started at 5 o'clock. It's like a 5.5 hour meeting here.
Just keep talking for a bit. What? Because Bryce really has to go bathroom.
Okay. Councilor McGregor?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, guys.
It's getting a little wonky after 8, eh? We've just been powering through all those meetings. Now we're